Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 159. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm good. Making some big plans for a potential leap out of this state.
Good.
So that's
emerge
finally
victorious.
Yeah.
Get out of there. God almighty.
Yeah, I will.
God, no offense to people that live in California, love California, born, raised. I understand that. I lived in California for a long time. I lived there for like 12 years. So I do appreciate it. But I'm thrilled not to be there anymore because it is just so oppressive in so many ways. I'm talking about politics or anything like that. It just feels like something's breathing down my neck when I'm in California that I just don't feel in the suburbs. You know, like I just don't feel it out here. There's some different spirits.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being here today. Of course, Chris, Dustin, Jaguar Furman, our executive producer. How are you today, my friend?
I am good. I made a horrible error where I made coffee this morning, and then I was like, I need to make my Sacred Symbols cup, as I often do in the afternoon. And I cleaned out the filter and stuff, and then I started making the coffee, and I was like, I didn't dump out the coffee from this morning that may have been remaining in the pot, but it was done at that point. Like I just was like, well, I don't have time, and so this is it has some very old coffee mixed in with my fresh coffee, and it seems fine. But if I die by the end of the episode, you guys will know why.
Cool. I mean, I don't want you to die, but at least we don't have to like get into the whole criminology of it.
Right.
Figure out what happened here. We'll basically know, which is nice. I
So.
appreciate you letting us know that ahead of time. Now, for the uninitiated, Sacred Symbols is our weekly PlayStation podcast. We do it each and every week over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Early ad-free access to every episode of the show, as well as exclusive access to 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus a week. Our supplemental podcast where we do spoiler casts and review discussions and mailbags. So let's call it a review discussion the three of us did for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart just went live. I also recorded a nearly 2-hour live call session, taking calls from the audience, not knowing what we're going to talk about. That was really fun. That will go live actually the day after this post on Patreon. So we're rolling. We're doing great, and we appreciate everyone out there. I have a lot of what is it? What do you put in the fire? Irons in the fire? You put a lot of something in the fire. Forks? You put forks in the fire?
I feel like iron is right, but I don't know what it means. Is that for like swords or something?
Well, no, it means you have like a lot.
So.
When you have a lot of irons in the fire, whatever it is, it means like you have a lot of things going on, a lot of things in play. You have to, kind of balance what needs to be taken off the fire, and that's kind of I think that's the etymology of that, but it's good because I think we have a lot of exciting prospects coming up. And I'm excited to talk more about that. But actually, Dustin, we have something, and of course, Chris, we have something substantial to announce. We've been working in secret on this, and by we, I mean Dustin and Ben, and kind of just telling me what's going on. None of us did really anything to make this happen. But
Yeah,
I haven't made a live appearance since 2016. And that was when I was at Kind of Funny. So it's been a very long time. And as you guys might recall, in what was it, Chris, 2019, we tried to do PAX West, and they actually accepted us, and we're going to put us in like the main theater and everything. And we're going to have this live stream because we were one of the biggest shows. And then they just unceremoniously removed us. So we realized that we were not welcome in mainstream spaces for whatever reason. And that if we wanted to do fun things outside of the show, we needed to figure out a way to do it ourselves. And so Ben and Dustin kind of hatched this plan for us to do a small live show in Western Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania. It's at the Butler Grand Ballroom, but it says in the notes, Butler's Grand Ballroom. Dustin, is that the proper nomenclature?
That is the proper name, but everyone here locally just refers to it as the Grand Ballroom.
The Grand Ballroom.
But I wanted to be specific for any outsiders.
And what we're basically doing, so the date is Saturday, September 4th at 7. And we want to do this. I look at this as a test. I keep calling it internally like a test balloon. I want to see what we need to know about doing something like this. and we're not trying to do a PAX or anything like that. What we're trying to do is replicate basically like an ornate sort of panel. Not even ornate, but just maybe lengthier. All we need are microphones and an audience, right? Like, and we'll do the shows. And so the way we're positioning this, Saturday, September 4th, 7 p.m., Butler, Pennsylvania at the Butler Grand Ballroom, is we're going to do something like the best games of all time. And the good news is that it'll be me and Chris and Dustin and Maddie and Dagan and Cog. And of course, Ben and Michael will be there and all the rest. So we want to just have like this. I compared it to, and I know you guys can relate to this, like I see comedians live, right? And I've seen big guys like Jerry Seinfeld, and I've seen smaller people in smaller theaters. But I think about specifically Bill Maher when I go see him. It's like an evening with Bill Maher. He has like his notes or whatever, and he's giving his routine, but he's kind of also interacting with the audience, but he's also kind of ad-libbing and whatever. And I think that's kind of like what we want to do. A way for us to gather as a community and just see how this works and like what we can learn as a company about just gathering a few hundred people into a place and doing a show. And we're not doing it this time around, to be honest, for profit. We're doing it because we really want to learn and see if we can do something where, and I'm sorry I'm going on and on, but where you see comedians like Joe Rogan, right? Just as an example, he'll put out a chart and it'll be like, he's in Denver, July 1st and July 2nd. And then he's in Miami, July 29th and July 30th. And I feel like, could we do something like that for ourselves? And could we have a sort of outsiders like mini tour that's spread across many months? A show here, a show there, whatever, that incorporates some other shows. Like, could we incorporate Snark Tank? Could we incorporate friends that do other gaming podcasts and all the rest? And so we're going to learn how to do that. So we're going to be live Saturday, September 4th, 7 p.m., Butler, Pennsylvania at the Butler's Grand Ballroom. Tickets will go on sale 3 hours after this podcast post on Patreon. A separate post will go live at that point, and patrons will have first access to this. And if there's anything left after that, which there may be, I wouldn't be surprised if there was, then the public will have their first crack when this podcast goes live for you in the public, so you'll know or not at this point. And what's fun is that so everyone's going to be there. There are going to be hotel details in the write-up, so we've like reserved a block for people if they want or whatever. I mean, you have to pay, but obviously you can just call and do all that. So that information will be there. Obviously, if you want to fly in, you would fly to Pittsburgh, but you can also drive from all of these different places around Ohio and all the rest. And then what's fun is the next day, Sunday, September 5th, we're going to have like a meet and greet picnic, maybe food truck kind of situation where we can kind of more mingle and hang out. And this will be great for people that couldn't get tickets, couldn't afford to go, couldn't get time off, whatever. Just another shot for people to hang out. And let's just see like what we learn and have fun. Dustin, do you think that that's like thorough enough? I went on for a while there.
No, I think you covered it. And I think that the most important thing just for me right now is just that people have the right expectations. You know, Colin, you've been involved in some pretty high production live events.
I have.
Yes. The goal is that we want this to be like, you know, we're having it at a ballroom that, you know, everyone will have a seat. It's not going to be standing. And, you know, like you said, think of it more as going to see like a speaking thing. Not that it won't be fun. Saying a speaking thing makes it sound kind of boring.
Well, no, I think people understand, like, my reference to a PAX panel, I think, is kind of the way I see it. Like, PAX panels last like a half an hour or an hour. Ours will last like 3 hours. That's right. That's like, think about it like that. Yeah, because you're right. I was part of Kind of Funny Live 1. It's not going to be like that. I was part of Kind of Funny Live 2. It is definitely not going to be like that. And I was also part of Let's Play Live when I was at Rooster Teeth. So it's absolutely not going to be like that. I did Let's Play Live at fucking Dolby Theater where they do the Oscars and shit. You know,
right?
Like that's definitely
so
not
insane.
Yeah, like I was backstage and on that stage and doing all. It's like it was totally like I was like I had no business being here. I was actually really annoyed that I had to do it, to be honest. And so, Chris, what do you think about this opportunity for us to kind of see what we learn?
I think it's exciting. I think this is super. I'm stoked to do this because I was super stoked to do PAX as well. There have been other things that I was excited to do, but like I just couldn't because scheduling just didn't work out or just some nonsense came up. But I've always wanted to do something live like this, and I think it'd be fun. I think it's going to be like genuinely like a super fun time, and that show is going to be a disaster in like a really positive way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've had some fun at doing live podcasts at these various shows in my career, and I agree. Like, I was a little crestfallen when we got removed from PAX, not because it was like so, like we were just kind of stomped on and acted like our show didn't matter. And meanwhile, no offense, these shows that have a fucking iota of our audience are doing live shows at PAX, and it made no sense. And I was like, what about our audience and what can we do? So Dustin and Ben, you guys deserve all the credit. I mean, you put this together, and hopefully it goes without a and by the way, since you did it all, if it doesn't go well, I'm going to blame you for that as well. Right.
We're excited. I mean, Ben and I, when we thought of this idea, we were like thinking about where to do it. And we were like, we could try to do it in Virginia or whatever. And then we were like, should we do it here? Because it would be so much easier for our first one. We have so many connections here. Like, we were able to just like put things together. And so it's weird to think of inviting everybody here to Ben and I's hometown. It's weird, but it's exciting at the same time. Like, I'm excited to be able to like check out these places, go to this restaurant, stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. It is like I was talking to Ben because I'm like, it's a hysterical conflict of interest in some way, because Ben is literally the mayor of Butler. Right. So he has engineered this like situation in which he'll bring hundreds of people to spend like a little bit of money in his town. And it was funny because obviously that's not his intent, but that's just an hysterical thing. And Ben makes like $5,000 a year, by the way, as like the mayor or something like that, or not even. It's like insane. So it's not like he has any money to interest in this. But I thought it was super fun. That was super funny. Then he told me that if we do it, I will get the key to the city, and I'm going to hold him to that. So
that's right.
Okay.
Pretty amped up. Pretty amped up about having the key to Butler, Pennsylvania. So yeah. Again, Saturday.
Absurd.
It's ridiculous, right? Like, so Saturday, September 4th, 7 p.m., Butler, Pennsylvania. Tickets go on sale for patrons 3 hours after the show goes live. You'll see the post when it pops. And we'll all be there again. Me, Dustin, Chris, Dagan, Cog, Maddie, Micah, Ben. Everyone will be there. It's going to be awesome. And we hope to see you there. Picnic the next day. All are going to be welcome. We'll have details on that. TBA, of course. And that will be free to the public September 5th. So we'll see how we do. I think a lot of this is going to rely on you guys as well. Like, not my co-host, but you guys out there listening, and gals, of course. It's going to rely on your energy as well, like what you bring to this. It's going to be, I want it to be interactive. I want to have a mic in the audience at all times, basically. I want to do something that's fun and like memorable, that's not over the top and not ostentatious, but just like a few hundred people remember, like, this was a really ridiculous and silly thing that happened here that night. And hopefully we can learn a few things along the way and do something bigger and grander. And you know what I like too? That it's not in Metropolis. It's not even in Virginia. I live near Richmond. It's a pretty big place. What about Western Pennsylvania? What about Ohio? What about Kentucky and Indiana? And it's cool to like be able to touch some different places and make it more realistic for different groups of people to go to. So I'd be in the future much more excited to go to like Boise than I would be to go to LA, to be perfectly honest. But we'll see what happens. All right. Let's see what else is to talk about here. Oh, okay. So remember, patreon.com/laststandmedia, merch, laststandmedia.shop. We'll have more to talk about with all of that soon as well. I've been getting quite a few messages about, and I just read a pretty deep one from a patron about what's going on in Cuba, both Cubans here in the United States and in the West, and Cubans. I actually heard from some Cubans that are still there. We're paying attention to what's going on. We are wishing you the very best. I don't want to get into a political conversation about Cuba, but we are aware of what's going on. Hope you get the outcome that I think ultimately you deserve, which is to be liberated from communism. And whether that happens now or sometime down the line, I'm sure it'll happen. And we have you in our thoughts and are pulling for you very much and your community. I wanted to also take a moment, if I might, boys, to pat myself on the back, as I sometimes do. Mark wrote in, and it's Mark with a question mark. So actually it's Mark. And he says, hey, C,
Mark?
C, and D. Just a correction on what Chris said about the PS5's SSD size on last week's episode. Colin was right. The reason why it's 825 gigs is because it operates across 12 channels rather than 8 or 4, which are more common. I won't bother doing the bit math, but 12 channels multiplied by the size of each NAND flash storage chip comes to 825 gigs. That flash storage only comes in multiples of 2, so the next largest size they could have opted for would have been 1.65 terabytes. Thus, increasing the cost. I don't know why I knew that, because I don't know anything about technology, but for some reason I pulled that one out. What do you think, Chris?
That's why I assumed you were wrong, because you often say I don't know anything about tech. I was like, that can't be right.
I set you up.
That is weird though. That is, yeah, you did. You fucking hustled me. But that is like a weird thing though. Like, it ultimately is like a cost thing. So like, I get it. That's all right. That's fair enough. But I had no idea. I 12 channel. I don't know what the fuck that even means. So like, I'll defer.
I think it's. I'm gonna. You know when you play like that old game with the British woman, Weakest Link, and you had to keep banking it. I'm gonna do one more. I'm not gonna bank yet. I'm gonna say that the channels are the conduits by which the data travels, and the SSD is able to deal with more of that, which is why like at 12 channels as opposed to like 4 or whatever, thus making everything load quicker, save quicker, and render quicker. Right? I'm throwing that out into the wilderness.
We'll see.
And we'll see if that British lady insults me and kicks me off the show at some point. I used to love that show.
Goodbye.
That was a great show. Yeah, goodbye.
She gave me anxiety like so deeply when I was young. She had such a stoic, cold demeanor that I just hated it.
You want I'm not trying to be mean to her, but I wanted to be attracted to her, but I couldn't get there. Because like, you want to be attracted to that woman. She looks like she's a dominatrix, basically. I don't feel like that, but not like, overly sexualized. You just know she's got like almost the trench coat, like the leather trench coat on or whatever.
It's not an overly sexualized dominatrix.
Right. But it's there. Well,
not
fair enough.
Sexual.
That's fair enough. I don't even know how to defend myself on that one. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, Joe T. Rodin said, just wanted to tell you about the existential crisis Dustin put me through last week. There I was minding my own business, ripping a fat piss when Dustin said Jaguar, and I didn't think anything of it until Colin corrected him with Jaguar. As my bladder emptied itself, I found myself mouthing the word to see how I had been pronouncing it my whole life. I think I had been mispronouncing it my whole life. I think it's how my parents pronounced it. I know you spell it Jaguar, like Jaguar, but for some reason, it just never dawned on me. So thank you, CDC, for straightening me out. Appreciate all you do. I don't know that this is solved because we have a lot of contention. First of all, I didn't anticipate that we were going to have to hear from the British about this one. And I should have known better. But of course, they say Jaguar, right? And they're very proud of that. They obviously have this prestige car. So we had to hear from them. So great. And thanks for chiming in about that. We always love to hear from our lobster back friends. But then we have the whole like Ohio, Western Pennsylvania contingent, this kind of Rust Belt contingent that says, no, it is in fact pronounced Jaguar. So Dustin, I didn't mean to be so harsh on you. Of course, you are saying it wrong, but it is a local pronunciation.
Right.
And I also say things with that local pronunciation, which people point out as well, like compass.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. If we did a poll, I think I would have more support for Jaguar than you would have for compass. But I mean, that's debatable. But I think Jaguar is correct. I do believe it's correct. In Western PA, I mean, I live an hour north of Pittsburgh, and if you've ever heard a full true Pittsburgher talk, you can barely even understand them. It's amazing that I've managed to steer clear of a lot of that. I mean, people here like one of the most famous is, of course, you go on a picnic at a park and you may put your feet in the creek. Well, people don't say creek here; they say crick. Put your feet in the crick. And so there's stuff like that. There's a ton of little words. I mean, famously also warsh people say around here, or like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's just all wrong, is what you're saying.
Yes. Dude, Chris, have you heard someone in true Pittsburghese before?
No, thank God.
Dude, I'll send you a clip later. It's something else. It's
I don't think I could handle that, man. Like that is to not be able to pronounce the days of the week, dude, like that's like, I'll give you compass, I'll give you Jaguars, whatever the hell that creature is. But he was it Friday.
My step grandfather says that. Dude, people in Pittsburgh will be like, hey, yins want to go downtown and see the Stillers and that. Yins got like stuff like that. Like it's every Pittsburgh like in the Western PA has just been activated listening to this podcast because someone's dad sounded exactly like that growing up. Like
it's it's too much. My ex-girlfriend, born and raised in Massachusetts, and her family had the Massachusetts accent.
Yeah.
And she had an uncle that I had met a couple times, really nice guy, but I had no idea what he was, like, literally no idea what he was saying. And it reminded me of my mom saying that my dad had this, like, I don't know what it was, like it was like his grandmother or friends of the family or something that like were from Ireland, and that had this like really thick accent where you couldn't understand what one of the people were saying. And my mom used to say that she used to just like kind of nod and say yes and like, oh yeah, and they kind of like try to guess what they were saying to kind of get the conversation going and get over it. And I found myself doing that with this man, where I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I just can't make heads or tails of it. And I also lived in Massachusetts for 5 years, so I'm not like that much of a newcomer, but nonetheless, that's what that story reminded me of. Tristan Wilbers wrote into us and said, this is my first submission to the show. I wanted to try a quick lighthearted prompt to start. Have you guys ever changed your ringtone or notification sounds on your phone to be anything game related? And if so, what? I recently changed my phone's notification sound to the PS2 game startup sound, and it freaks me out every time I hear it because of how cool and not on the nose it is. Thanks. Well, I don't know, guys. You're a little younger than me, but I remember this being more of a thing during the flip phone era and the brick phone era. And people, even at IGN, people had like, the Mario, like, some Mario noises, or like, the discovery noise from Zelda or whatever the case might be. But I actually never, what I had, the only time I ever had a ringtone, it was Headstrong by Trapped. And it was on my Nokia flip phone. That was like my ringtone for a year or something in 2004. So I have no experience with that otherwise. But Chris, have you ever played around with the video game sounds from your phone?
Wow, that just blew me back to 2004. I do remember this being more of a Motorola Razr thing, like the second and maybe like the first generation of smartphones. Like you messed around with it because like websites didn't know how to handle downloads on mobile. You know what I mean? But like, I think the last time I had like a custom ringtone or a custom text tone of anything was I had the Metal Gear like alert sound.
Yeah.
On my iPhone like 4S. And that was like whenever I would get a text from like people that I knew. So like if I would get some text from some random person, it would just be the normal one. I would know that I could ignore it. But if it was like the Metal Gear, it's like, oh, that's a person I should maintain a relationship with. But after I like 2015 forward, like I've never bothered to really custom. I still have like default text tones and ringtones. Who the hell has the patience to deal with like, I don't even know, like iTunes and like trying to figure that shit out? It's annoying. Well, so like I just haven't bothered.
That's what I was gonna say. Was I was a little surprised by this, Dustin, just because I feel like no one wants to hear anyone's phone at all anymore. Like I certainly don't want to hear my phone. First of all, that's a way for me to dodge everyone that I don't want to talk to. Like when I'm in group texts with people, with rare exception, like when I'm in like these family and I just mute them, because I'm like, I can't keep up with this. And I come back and like there are literally 150 messages that my family sent to each other. And I'm like, I can't possibly even be expected to catch up with this. So I've dodged this bullet, etc., and so on. So what do you think about this? You're a little young too, so you were, I don't know if you had a phone even during the height of the ringtone era, like the height of the ringtone era.
So my first phone was a Motorola Razr in 2008, and it's when they were getting old. So I think it was like free or like $50 or something. But Chris, mine was also Metal Gear, but it wasn't the alert sound; it was the codec sound, like the Yeah. So, but I'm with you. Phones at this point for me, I feel like should never be heard when it comes to alerts. That's just, dude. I'm trying to reduce my phone even vibrating and alerting me as much as possible. The last thing I need is an audible sound that, will trigger me and to be like, stop when you're trying to relax, So turn your phone on silent for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't want to hear your phone. I actually get very nostalgic when I hear certain iPhone sounds. It brings me right back to like 2011 when I first got my iPhone, because I used Palm Pre for a while. People might not even really remember this because it was so long ago. Remember when phones were locked to providers and you couldn't get iPhone with like certain providers? So I was with Sprint. I'm still with Sprint. I'm with T-Mobile now. And we didn't get iPhone, I think, until 2011. So I remember getting my first one, and then you have the typing noise on it first, and then you shut that off. Then you have like the whoop, whoop, kind of text noises, and all of that. And when I accidentally hit my, knock the ringer, and it comes on or whatever, I'm like, it just transports me right back to that time. It's very strange how it does that. Very, very nostalgic indeed. VPNs, or virtual private networks, have a host of benefits, but for we, the voracious consumers of entertainment, their primary use is obvious: spoofing your location. The reasons to do this are legion, of course, but the possibilities are likewise endless. And with NordVPN, you could be watching Japanese anime from an actual Japanese anime service like In Japan in minutes. Here's the rub. By going to nordvpn.com/symbolsvpn or using the checkout code symbolsvpn at nordvpn.com, you can gain access to a suite of VPN-related security features that encrypt and protect your data in places both public and private. But you'll also gain the ability to change your location to any of 59 different countries around the world. And that's when we can have some fun. Imagine that there are some PC games you want to play from somewhere else in the world, but not where you live. You can remedy that by using NordVPN. NordVPN can likewise allow you to access streaming services from around the globe. British, Japanese, German, pretty much anywhere that's anywhere when it comes to the television shows, movies, games, and music you love. And while this alone pays for the price of admission, NordVPN also comes with a salvo of security benefits that can't be ignored, especially for an old-timer like myself, who's always worried about his data. I love that I can download NordVPN on pretty much any device I regularly use, like my desktop, laptop, and phone, and that it encrypts and protects my data from both my home connection and when I'm out and about. So yes, it's awesome to have the option of watching overseas content, but the digital armor of NordVPN is also most welcome. So get a suit of NordVPN armor for yourself with a built-in geo-bending buff. Go to nordvpn.com/symbolsvpn. That's nordvpn.com/SYMBOLSVPN. Or use the code SymbolsVPN at checkout to get a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. See what NordVPN can do for you, dear listener. You won't be sorry you did. Head to nordvpn.com/symbolsvpn or use the code SymbolsVPN at checkout today. All right, let's see what else is going on here. A couple notes. Well, actually, one note. Sony won't be at Gamescom, so we know that now. We wait to hear more about Tokyo Game Show. That seems unlikely as well. Although they do something typically small that no one cares about there anyway, where they don't talk about games that we even get. But we'll see what happens there. But no Sony at Gamescom. Not a huge surprise, I guess. Guys, what do you think about... We'll start with you, Chris. What's going on with this Steam Deck, whatever they're calling it, this handheld? What do you make of this announcement?
I think it's interesting. I mean, there's definitely a market for it. I don't see anybody like clowning it. Like, I feel like a couple years ago, people would have clowned this thing. I don't know why I get that sense, but I feel like that's true. Where like back then it was just like, you're copying the Switch. Even those like NVIDIA Shield things, I remember looking and being like, is this really all that interesting? But I mean, this thing's pretty strong for how small it is, and it looks kind of cool. It's got the back buttons on it, which makes sense because the placement of the face buttons and the stick make no sense to me. But I think it looks cool. I think it's interesting. I wonder how many people who already have like a really strong gaming PC will want to play games that belong on a strong gaming PC. Like, how many people would bring that onto a portable thing? Because I tried playing Doom 2016 on the Switch with the small sticks, and it wasn't even like a frame rate or like resolution issue for me. It was just like the sticks and just the small screen. It all feels like totally wrong for a game like that. It just feels completely like a square peg in a round hole. Like, it just doesn't belong there. So like, I don't know. Like, I wonder what games this is really going to be for, because there's not a lot of PC centric titles that I think are necessarily enhanced by portability.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the sticks because it reminds me a little bit of the Wii U, where the sticks are not in the appropriate place next to the face buttons. This is simply a standard. And if you don't follow this standard, it's not like offset sticks. Things have to flow a certain way. It's just muscle memory built up over decades. You can't try to trend against that. It doesn't make any sense. So when I saw this, I was like, why the fuck do you have the stick, the right stick, parallel to the face buttons, ABXY they're calling them? That was a huge issue for me, but otherwise I think this thing looks and sounds cool. I think this is an awesome idea. And you know what? And this is where I want to kick it to you, Dustin. This reinvigorated in me. I know the price and the modularity or whatever is going to be a problem for a lot of people, but this shows me that even a company as conservative, fiscally and economically conservative as Steam is, they don't do anything. If it like they remember when they made the Steam machine and then they didn't make it, they had like everyone else try to make one, and so it failed, and it was just this entire licensing debacle. They are making this thing. They see the handheld market, and I've been screaming this. Why won't anyone even try? And the weirdest challenger of them all came out of left field with this thing, and I'm rooting for them because I'm like, we need some competition here, and they're trying to at least bring high-end competition like Sony did. It's even higher end than Vita was obviously aiming for. So what do you think about this, Dustin?
It's a very interesting product in that one of the main things they're advertising, it's like your Steam library is already available. And so they're really pitching this to PC gamers who already play games on Steam, and they're pitching this as a portable option. And they've talked about that they're going to sell a dock for it also, so you'll be able to plug it into your TV. And it is interesting in a time when, we see Sony get out of the mobile space and Nintendo just completely dominate, being the only one. So Valve is like, yeah, let's do this. I'm a little cautious of this device, which, by the way, I'm getting major Game Gear vibes from the design.
Yeah,
like,
boxy
straight
like
up.
that. Yeah.
But I think it was in an interview with IGN. I'm trying to find it here. That basically said the battery life is anywhere between 2 and 8 hours. So quite a bit of range. And something they specifically said here was, quote, you can play Portal 2. So a decade old game, Portal 2 for 4 hours. And if you limit it to 30 FPS, you'll be playing for 5 to 6 hours.
I can't hate on that though. I just can't hate on it because it's a powerful machine. It's actually very much like Game Gear in that regard, not the power,
True.
but also about like how it just had no battery life. Like the Game Gear was really only playable if you plugged it in, unless you wanted to, because of the backlight. It was outrageous. I mean, this is why Nintendo avoided backlights forever until 2003 when they finally had a rechargeable device. So I what do you think about, Chris, this kind of modular approach to pricing? And like, I was interested, they're charging more for like a better glass on the screen. They're charging you to get into the pre-order queue. It's a very libertarian approach. And I'm not saying that in a political way. I'm saying that in an economic way. It's very Steam-like. They are coming out. They're saying you'll pay for this thing. You're going to want it. They're doing the same thing with VR. It is aimed at a small audience. And I think that much like their VR initiative is kind of elbowing at Sony's VR initiative, this is now elbowing at Nintendo's Switch.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting strategy. Like, I don't know if I don't know if I like the whole like charge for a pre-order thing, but like the better glass, it's like whatever. You could argue that Switch is literally doing that with this OLED model.
Sure.
Like what is really the difference between the current Switch and the OLED Switch? Literally just the screen, and they're charging more for it. So like that stuff, it's like whatever, that's fine. I think this is really cool. I'm curious to see how this thing works, and the battery life is kind of the big thing with this, because like if you're better off just plugging this thing in, you've got a PC that's like infinitely stronger, and that's who this thing is marketed towards, which is the other thing where it's like, yeah, you can't hate on a game lasting longer at 30 FPS or like 2 hour battery life, but like for people who like really care about dropped frames and like dynamic resolution and like anti-aliasing, the people who are like really keyed in on this stuff, who are likely the only people really paying attention to something like this, I feel like that might be a pretty big deal to some of them, even with the excitement of just the premise of having something, portable and powerful in the way that this thing is. I think this is like, this to me screams first generation smartphone, where it's like this technology is going to be really cool eventually. And right now it's up to like a lot of early adopters to kind of prove to Valve that it's worth pursuing for the long haul, which is like a big if with Valve. So
That's true.
that's the, I don't know. I think I'd be more excited if Valve wasn't doing it, because I remember like, I remember seeing like Steam Deck and I remember thinking, oh, it's probably just like a Steam machine again, whatever. Like I didn't even think about it because I was just like, oh, they probably have some random company building a bunch of these. But no, it's Valve. And I was like, oh shit, crazy. But they already have that like reputation kind of in my head of just like, they'll just throw something, they'll throw like schematics to the wind and let people build shit for them. So
yeah,
we'll see if they do that again.
I think that's a very well said. I really feel like that was the biggest thing I walked away from, was just they're in. And I feel like that says something about what they want to do, and that their willingness to stamp their name on something literally means that, I think, as opposed to figuratively with licensing, I think means that they're in it. I don't think this is going to be like an abandonment project for them. And I agree, this is like a generation 1 device. For me, that stick placement is a no-go. I can't, because I actually was looking at this and you're like, if there's another platform that I would start playing on in some way, it would be Steam. That would be like the next platform I would probably like. And I have games on Steam, but it's just, I actually have probably like 3 Steam accounts. I don't even know. I think I bought Civilization like 4 times at this point, but I feel like that would be the next place I'd jump to. So this is like an interesting tool for me. But when I look at that stick placement, I'm like, there's just no way I can deal with that. I'm telling you, it was the same reason why I couldn't play Wii U. I had no idea what they were even thinking doing that. It made it unplayable.
Super uncomfortable.
I agree. I totally agree. Dustin, do you think Sony is paying attention to this and thinking about anything?
I think that they're definitely paying attention, but I think that the one smart aspect, I think, is that Sony was like, okay, we want to have another pillar of our business. And they tried out VR and it did pretty well. And I think that that's now their other pillar is VR. And so I think the Vita really burned them. And I'm just trying to figure out what would be a solution that would make sense for them. Could they design a portable that can play certain versions of PS4, PS5 games that are digital? Like, I just don't see them pitching to developers, hey, we have a portable that's going to play its own unique games again after Vita. I think devs are going to be like, yeah, no, never again.
Right. I think you're absolutely right there. I also think what Chris said earlier was really salient about, in the case of this device, aiming towards the very people that don't really need it. And I think that was, or like don't necessarily want it because they want fidelity. They want all these things that they can just have elsewhere. I think Sony's insistence on bringing games to mobile is exciting if they have trophy support and really try to put some cool features there. So it shows that their mind is over there. But I really insist that this is a space that should not be left uncontested. I'm happy that someone is getting involved trying to do something there. And I think you're absolutely right too, Dustin. And I said this to Micah when I was reading about this earlier when I was putting the show together. I was like, it's time for a portable PlayStation 4. If they can do something like this, why can't we get some weak base 2013 PS4 in some sort of slimline model that has a screen on it and can be played and is pretty expensive? I feel like people might play something like that. I don't think it's going to be realistic that you're going to have something next generation, but wouldn't it be interesting if Sony did what you said and said, it was like, fine, well, we have a huge back catalog of games anyway. So, and PS4 games are going to continue to come out for years, even not from first party, but certainly from third parties. So do you think that that's possible? Do you think that that's technologically possible? This is where my ignorance comes in.
I'm trying to think, like, comparing I haven't really dove into the specs of the Steam Deck, but you got to think the base PS4 hardware at this point is so old that you would be able to do something like that. And one other advantage to them doing something like that is they're like, hey, we have this device and it's only going to play digital games because it's portable. It's not like you're going to be able to hook up a disk drive for your old PS4 games. And so that could push people towards, the resistant people like me to buying more digital games in order to be able to play it on this portable platform. So that's interesting. I'd have to look into more of the specs and see. I would think
I have them
my
up here.
gut tells me it would be.
I have them up here. I don't know. So it says CPU Zen 2 4C/8T. And then GPU 8 RDNA 2 CUs. 16 gigabyte LPDDR5 RAM, etc. and so on. 16:10 aspect ratio, which is weird.
That is odd.
So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I feel like that would be, I don't know, Sony, like, come on. I know you seem so interested in VR. I feel like that's a really promising place to be too. Don't get me wrong, and I've long been a proponent of VR and the promise of VR, both inside and outside of games. But I feel like there's even more promise by getting into handhelds again. Even if they don't want to support it themselves, start making some gimped versions of your old hardware and sell them. If you're so proud of PS4 and don't want to abandon them, then maybe you want to give them a different way to play. But yeah. I digress on this for now. This is an interesting topic we'll certainly keep an eye on. Guys, there's a few other things I want to get through. I don't know if you saw this. Kotaku actually put it together, so I'm reading from their story, but PlayStation has been pretty heavily showcased on Jeopardy, and it seems like they actually have sponsored, and which is fine. I have no problem with that, and I'm sure other companies do it too. Sponsored like categories and questions in Jeopardy recently, and there was a category called Gamer's Delight, and it's about the amazing world of gaming past and present. And so here are the things that were said. So the questions. $200 question. New PS5 owners get introduced to console components via a platform game starring this robot with the same name as the Jetsons dog. And so it's Astro. And then and I can't believe it. When I was watching this, I'm like, I cannot believe this is on Jeopardy. And I'm like, that's the $200 question? That's a pretty tough question. And then it says, number $400 question. Toru Iwatani wanted to make a game about eating, and after seeing a pizza with a slice missing, he created this 1980 classic filled with fruit and ghosts. So that's obviously Bandai Namco, and that would be Pac-Man. And then the $600 question is, friends, it looks like Dr. Nefarious is back to his evil ways, forcing Ratchet to once again strap this little robot buddy on his back and fight the good fight. And so the answer is Clank. And then 800. Now entering the arena is Twinkle Riot, a hard-hitting star in Destruction All-Stars, a type of this alliterative competition in which vehicles are supposed to get smashed to pieces. And that's Demolition Derbies is the answer to that. And then finally, $1,000. The PlayStation 5 is kitted with an ultra-high-speed SSD, this kind of hyphenated drive that makes iconic characters like Sackboy really move. So, yeah, anyway.
That last one is a little on the nose with the marketing.
Yeah, it was...
Dude.
Yeah, what do you think, Chris, about all this?
The Destruction, I couldn't believe that Destruction Destruction Derby, that All-Stars game was there at all. Like, that is astounding. Like, of all games to market, like, it was so odd. Like, that to me was like the most egregious one.
Yeah, that was
it's more egregious than the SSD.
Yeah, like, why not?
But
I was thinking, you're absolutely right. And I was thinking, I'm like, what about if you want to talk about newer stuff and you Sackboy? I mean, I guess that's fine, but what about like Demon Souls or something? I don't know, or Returnal. You can like have some sort of. I was like, Destruction All-Star. It's not going to become a thing, so stop. All right. What else? Oh, I saw this story. It's a rumor, and apparently, I don't want to say it's refuted because I actually trust the source completely, but there is this rumor going around that Warner Brothers is looking to unload two specific teams, NetherRealm and TT Games, which you could argue are outside of Rocksteady, their biggest teams. And this was according to friend of the show, Jez Corden from Windows Central, who apparently looked over documents that indicated that they're among the studios, in quotes, that Warner Brothers is looking to maybe offload. But Warner Brothers told various websites that... let's see here. In response to the rumors, I can confirm NetherRealm Studios and TT Games will continue to remain a part of Warner Brothers Games and are all included in the Warner Media Discovery merger. So nothing to say about that, but I wanted to acknowledge that that's happening. And we'll obviously have more to say about that if any of those teams do actually come up for sale. The shit is still going on with Abandon. Dustin, where are you? Where's your mind with this now? So basically, and I'm reading Push Square here on this one, but you can preload the trailer app for the game on July 29th, and then the trailer comes out in August. This is all, I think, truly bizarre. And I think I want to do a Sacred Symbols Plus episode just all about this. Just about, not about, I want to just collect. Let me back up. This is my thesis, okay? That this is so weird that I actually think it's strange to think that there is nothing going on. Now, I'm not saying that it's likely or unlikely that something's going on. I'm not saying that, right? I'm not saying this is just some dude over his head or some really ill-conceived thing. I'm just saying I don't know how anyone could even objectively look at this and be like, this is totally normal. And so, Chris, are you finding yourself at all interested in this, or are you kind of tired of it? Because in reading the comments online, I think a lot of people are not interested anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a confusing, the way they're even talking about like what this thing is even is just baffling. It's like, it's a trailers app. Like what even is that? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, have you heard of a trailers app?
No,
like I've never heard of such a thing.
I don't know what's meant by this.
If I don't even know like the genre of item it is, like if you can't tell me it's like, oh, this is a game or this is like a demo or this is like a tech or something, you go with like trailers app. Like I don't know what to make of that, so I can't care. I'm interested in this just from a base, like it's fascinating how this studio is just like in the limelight, or like not in the limelight, in the spotlight right now, and like just all the weird situations that they've got themselves in, how they've managed to secure like a spot on the PlayStation UI for a little bit, and that they're getting all this like attention from Sony like proper for something that I can't even discern what the fuck it even is. That to me is more fascinating, and ultimately I think will be more fascinating than whatever this turns out to be. Like if this really isn't like a Kojima thing, then I don't know why anybody should care. If this is not what that is. Because otherwise it's just going to be like a huge, confusing, like marketing mill kind of waste of everybody's time. And I just, I don't know. We'll see what this is when this thing launches. But I'm not interested in any real way other than sheer curiosity.
I couldn't say it any better. I feel, and Dustin, I'll kick it over to you with this one, but does my theory that this is just too weird to ignore? I mean, I saw your tweet the other day. It's too weird. I don't, the pendulum swings because things happen where I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And then the pendulum swings in the other direction where it's like, oh, this guy's Twitter account that was made in like 2013 or something just pops up. And it's like, well, you can't spoof that. You can't spoof the creation date of a Hassan Karaman Twitter account. Maybe he went, I mean, and then you're suggesting that he went out and bought it. And there are there's other things with like, he's been posting actively on Unreal's or, on the Epic forums for Unreal help and stuff like that long before the game was noted. So for all of the weird shit that happens, there's certainly a balance there where it's like, well, these seem to really explain things, but it doesn't really. Like I don't, there's just something in me that does, I can't let go of the fact that this is so, I've been in this industry for so fucking long, man. Like we just saw Sony refuse to sell Cyberpunk 2077 for 6 months because the game wasn't working. And even when they did, they said like, you shouldn't even play it on PS4. Like just don't even bother playing on a PS4, but they're going to let a company pretend basically, or like have this whole thing going with Unreal assets being used and all this, and all of this weird shit going on, and they don't come along at some point and just pull the plug and be like, there's no way that we're doing this. They are in on it. So I don't understand. That's the thing to me. Anyway, I'm fucking ranting now. Go on.
Yeah. Sony is in on it, like no matter what. And it's funny because the tweet that you referenced that I made, I basically was just saying that Blue Box, a small indie team that has only one known name attached, is getting this trailers app that we knew about, but now we know is preloadable. They got the preload experience. So, no special treatment there. And that's the funny thing. I had some people reply to me that's like, enough with this conspiracy theory bullshit. Stop trying to find something that isn't there. They've got no special treatment. was like, okay,
That's
I didn't
wild.
do this. What I wanted to do is respond to that tweet and say, hey, @Barry, next time you release a game, make sure you demand PlayStation not only give you a PlayStation blog post, but let's also have, hypothetically, Harbroxia 3 or Twin Break, whatever. I'm just making up games. I'm not announcing
Tribreaker?
anything. Tribreaker. Let's get a trailers app for the next game and demand it, because they're getting no special treatment. That's just something any developer can do. All the reports about Sony not caring about small independent developers, they're not true. They love Blue Box. Come on, people.
Yeah,
like something is happening.
It really is. To steal Chris's parlance, it's just wild. I don't know how people can look at this. It reminds me, it's like different vacillations like that I go through with conspiracy theories, where I find them quite enticing and then you kind of dissuade yourself of them. And I'm not talking about like the major ones. You just hear shit all the time, right? Like with Giselle Maxwell, or the recent suicide with McAfee or whatever, that fucking nut job. Right. And how he kept saying he's not going to kill himself. He's not going to kill himself. And then he ends up dead in a Spanish prison cell or something. And you find yourself falling down these rabbit holes, and then you pull yourself back up. But nothing's going to make it not weird that name translates to Hideo.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to make it seem weird that you're posting things on social media in the middle of the night in the Netherlands. And you're doing it over and over again. Nothing is going to stop from the fact that we have no idea. We don't know anyone who knows this person, as far as I know. Don't you think that it would have been a big expose at Kotaku or Polygon or one of these sites to be like, we went and found people that worked for this guy, that know this guy. Here's this guy's fucking barber. Here's this guy. Like, this is a big story. Like, go try to track down who the hell this guy is. And the fact that no one has done that, either in a very meaningful way, I want to say, either says that it's just not a story people want to chase, or it's more mysterious than that. And I'll also say that it doesn't take away from the fact that he is playing weird shit on his account on PSN that doesn't exist, and that I still feel like this is a coin flip. I've said that I think a million times now. I just feel like this is a coin flip. I think this is bizarre. And I actually want to I guess I'm going to jump ahead here because we're talking about Kojima in our list here. But he also did bring up recently, and this kind of complicates the issue for me in some weird way. He talked about on Twitter that he seemed to have like kind of a problem with the director's cut name for Death Stranding, which is hysterical, and indicated to me that maybe is this like a feint where he's pretending that he's like kind of like outside of the circle, and he feels comfortable talking about a Sony product in such a way. Or is it like is it kind of a symbol that, oh, like Kojima is like out of the circle now? We're all being crazy. I think this is the big thing for me. Chris, what do you think about this Death Stranding director's cut nomenclature? And do you feel like, well, actually, let's even remove it from Kojima. What do you think about this name that seems like they're just going to use? I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but I find it interesting that Kojima himself has a problem with it. And he had this idea of calling it Director's Plus, which I thought was kind of funny. In other words, saying like, in Director's Cut indicates that we couldn't do all these things, but we did do all these things. We're adding to it. So it's not the Director's Cut.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I feel like Kojima is just kind of the person who just like kind of says whatever the hell. There's that famous, do you remember that tweet of him who's like, where he's wearing the rainbow shirt and he's like, I love this shirt, but I'm not a gay. You ever see that tweet?
I'm gonna look that up.
It's like he just sort of says, it's a funny tweet. It is just like a funny. He just says whatever the hell he thinks. I don't really think he's all that muzzled by anybody. I feel like he's probably getting a lot of inquiries about it, and he was just like, yeah, it's not, because I would imagine that of all the people to have a game named Director's Cut, he would probably get the most like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? Like, because it's his studio. He's such a film buff guy. He knows pretty clearly what Director's Cut means. Whereas I feel like most people in the games industry who maybe don't delve a lot into film, maybe don't know a lot about film, probably actually don't really know what that means, really. They probably just think, oh, whatever, it's a new version, which probably makes sense to a lot of people. So I would imagine that he was just like, yeah, it's not a director's cut, but this is just a branding thing for remasters now, and it's fine. It's just branding. It's marketing. At the end of the day, it's just like, all right, here's a it's the new Game of the Year edition, which I think is like, that was far more egregious because that was like implying that just like everything that came out in a given year was just the game of that year, and everybody just happened to win this award in secret, like amongst their friends or something. Because there's Games of the Year editions of games that certainly did not win Game of the Year. So to me, Director's Cut, yeah, it's not correct, but it's at least like, I don't know, it's at least less egregious to me as far as the self-congratulatory nature of it. You know, I'd prefer Director's Cut to, you know, Game of the Millennium edition.
I love that point. That's a great point. I never even really thought about that because I fucking loathe that too. And I always sounded funny, like what you'd have to sometimes look at the asterisk or the cross, you know, in the little italicized shit where it's like, what website did you pull this Game of the Year from? When it's like a Game X, what Game of the Year? I'm like, no one gave you Game of the Year. What the hell are you talking about? But by the way, Chris, I found that tweet. It is awesome. It was sent August 15th, 2013. And he says, just so you know, it may look like rainbow flag t-shirts that I'm wearing today, but I am not a gay. And that is excellent. And I was just scrolling through the responses. There's responses from like all eras because people keep coming back to this iconic tweet that somehow I missed. So very well done on that, Chris, that poll. Now, Dustin, I wanted to kick this over to you. Do you think that, well, let's talk about both things. Whatever you want, really. Is this a Kojima feint? Does this have anything to do with the other? And because am I now getting too conspiratorial by saying like, well, we can maybe read into that there's nothing to this because Kojima seems comfortable speaking out of turn a little bit. I mean, he's really not, I mean, he's Kojima, so he's getting away with it. But I guarantee you, if like Cory Barlog said that, Sony would be like,
hey,
you know, like, you got to delete that. So talk to me about all this director's cut shit and all the rest.
I get Kojima's point, but at this point, like, marketing and branding things never make any sense. We got a PlayStation 4 professional. Do you need like a college degree or, you know, do you have to check your LinkedIn before you buy the PS4 Pro? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that's fine. So director's cut, whatever. People understand that it means expanded. Is it, when you analyze it, does it make sense? No, but whatever. I get that he would be a stickler about that since he literally plasters his name on everything 30 fucking times. So he does care about what the word director means. Is it connected? I don't know. Right now we know that like he also was saying how he was upset. I don't know if he said he was upset, but he made it clear that he's like, I didn't edit the trailer to show off director's cut. Would you guys have preferred if I made the trailer? And then most recently now it shows that he is working on some kind of trailer and he isn't saying what it's for.
So weird.
Is it for, very well may just be like, they'll do the director's cut version on PC. And because Sony's not the one publishing it, he's going to make the trailer for that version. It could be, but dude, one other just random little tidbit is that I believe in some tweet, Blue Box said that some of their trailers will be like up to 12 minutes for a trailer. There's only one other guy that has done a trailer that long. I'm just saying, like.
And also note that they made I said it before, but they're using Unreal Engine assets in their trailer. That's the other thing where you could imagine maybe Sony getting tricked at some point, but they even look at that and they're like, wait a minute, well, you just are flipping assets. There's gotta be something to this. I can't let go. I'm sorry, I can't let go of it. And I'll go down with the ship. I don't care.
It's too weird, man. Like it's all bizarre. Like all of it. None of this is even slightly usual.
It's
trailers app.
We're going to talk in a little while about a Gran Turismo story where they're doing weird shit with an app too, but it's different. And also that's Gran Turismo. So
right.
we might understand that the game that will sell probably 10 million copies in its lifetime might get a little bit of special treatment. But yeah, this is too weird. I think it's so weird that it's almost like it's like the horseshoe theory in politics, where it's like you're getting so weird that maybe you're just coming out the other side now. You know, it's like, so we're gonna see what happens here and keep an eye on that. But I won't let go of this conspiracy. I just think there's too many things suggesting that something is up. Whether it's Konami, which is actually a name that hasn't even come up here. We haven't even said Konami or Silent Hill because I'm not totally convinced that maybe that is it. But there's something happening here. All right. A couple other things to discuss, guys, before we get into what we're playing. We're really taking, well, by we, I mean I am really taking my time here. It seems like Spider-Man 2 is doing its mocap now, which is exciting for Insomniac. We expect that we won't be seeing Insomniac for some time, again, because they've already gone twice. But Najee Jeter, who played or plays Miles Morales, I didn't realize he also plays Sam in The Last of Us. I don't know how I missed that. So in the original Last of Us, I don't know how I missed that one. But he tweeted out this Instagram post of him in his mocap gear and then deleted it. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah.
Could he be mocapping for The Last of Us remake?
I
mean, it would. They already did all that work, though. But maybe they're expanding.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually
just a thought. Just a thought. Since you brought that up,
my God, that could be possible. We'll see what happens there. And then I wanted to bring this up. Captain Canada wrote into us, our friend. He says, "Look, Fat, I'm alarmed, although unfortunately not surprised, by how little coverage Western gaming media is giving to the Crytek and Tencent story. Their silence is deafening. Considering how much these outlets love to attack big corporations, it's really weird that they have nothing to say about the company behind 2017's clap for Xi Jinping, an awesome speech mobile game. Why do you think the likes of Polygon and Kotaku constantly give Tencent and their authoritarian state baggage a free pass?" So the story he's talking about here, and so let me catch everyone up. There is a German newspaper called Bild, B-I-L-D. They have a pretty, I don't want to say dubious reputation, but they're considered more of like a New York Post or a Sun if you're in New York or if you're in Britain. So kind of like a tabloid paper. But not necessarily that it's not what they're saying isn't true, not necessarily they don't have sources, but they're spectacular. And pardon the pun, because we were just talking about Spider-Man. And they are reporting that German company Crytek is being pursued by a European subsidiary, according to a reduction by Gamma Sutra, of Tencent, and that Tencent is sniffing around Crytek. And the reason that this is somewhat urgent, according to the journalist Julian Ropke, so it's Ropcke if you want to find him on Twitter, where he says a lot of this stuff and links to his story, is that Crytek works on things that are military grade, literally. Like they work on like simulations and engine work for militaries. And I think that's kind of been silently keeping them alive, actually. And this journalist is saying that sources are telling him that Tencent is doing this through basically a shell company to not attract interest or attention to the fact that they're going to acquire things. And people that work there are apparently saying to this journalist in Germany, we're afraid that our stuff is going to fall into the Communist Party's hands because Tencent will open the doors to them once they own the company. So I know that there's not much to say here, but I wanted to acknowledge that story has been reported. It's worth noting, again, that the source seems reliable. The guy, I don't know Julian Ropke from a fucking hole in the wall, but he has tens of thousands of followers, seems to have a German reputation in that journalism field. Obviously, I don't speak German. And I wanted to just alert everyone to it. Why no one is talking about it? I don't know. I think because here's the thing. It's what I kind of felt about with the Israel-Palestine situation, regardless of what side you fell on with it, is for them to say something in such a hive-minded industry like games media or games journalism or parts of games dev and games publishing, PR, etc. They need a thought leader. They need that guy. Remember that everything that happened with Palestine and Israel came through one person in the industry who started saying something, and everyone started mimicking him because they don't know about the situation. So they take it at face value when someone they trust says something, but no one's saying anything about this. And we'll continue to report on this. What's going on with China and Saudi Arabia is unnatural to the games industry that requires freedom of expression, freedom of thought, and all the rest. We don't want these companies infiltrating any more of Western publishers and throwing their money around. And it seems like it's going to happen again. And it seems like it's I don't know. It seems like it's something worth keeping an eye on. So I can't speak to why other people aren't reporting it, but I wanted to acknowledge that nonetheless. Chris, do you have anything to add to this?
We should
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say we should do a Let's Play of Clap for Xi Jinping, an awesome speech.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. I mean, listen, guys. And Dustin, I'll give it to you after this, but I don't want to this isn't political. It's not political. I'm sorry. This isn't a political statement. If you're from a communist dictatorship, you're living under the yoke of complete oppression, and everything that happens underneath it is not free. When you can't go to the ballot box and vote for things, when you can't even visit or leave the country or visit other countries without permission, when you're stuck in place, when you have concentration camps full of political prisoners and you're disappearing people, and all the crazy shit that you hear about with what's going on with China and their foreign policy in the South China Sea and all this, they're a complete threat. And it's not a threat to the left. It's not a threat to the right. It's a left to our way. And you have to just understand you can't give them these different tendrils. And it's why people don't talk about this in the games industry a lot, but Huawei, which is a major Chinese telecommunications company, is not even allowed to operate in the United States. But no one talks because we don't trust them. They wanted to do 5G towers, as everyone might remember. And we were like, are you out of your mind? There's no way you're doing that here. But for some reason, we're going to this is a bigger story. And I said this on Sacred Symbols Plus, but I'm trying to formulate in my mind a way to get to a broader audience with this message. And I think I'm just going to write an essay and just kind of shop it to a few outlets, not in the games industry, outside of it, because I think we need attention of some fucking adults at this point, and we're not getting it. So I just wanted to say that. Dustin, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that was all well said. I don't know what else to really add.
Okay, and the only other thing here that I wanted to discuss, and by the way, I accidentally, because I jumped ahead, Daquan Bynum, if you're listening to this, I had your question pulled out to talk about Kojima, but we weren't able to use it, so I apologize about that. But there is a website called TMT Post that discussed, or I had a conversation with Jim Ryan, who we like to hear about sometimes, but not always. It depends on what he has to say. He said something, people can go read this interview, but he says something, Chris, that I find a little startling. He says, in part, quote, "New IP is the lifeblood of any entertainment industry, but it is very difficult to create new IP. I am very happy that we can do this in the past few years, but it requires great courage and the courage to bear financial risk. It also requires trust in the studios." And people are kind of been reading into this a little bit about, is he giving us a hint that we can expect more sequels now? We're getting the rumors about Bloodborne being re-released, about this Uncharted collection that might be coming to PS5. Those are rumors for right now. We know we're getting God of War 2 and Horizon 2. We're getting Spider-Man 2. We just discussed that. We're getting The Last of Us remade, probably. We're also getting other projects, including another Uncharted game and all the rest. Is he kind of telegraphing to us that we should expect much less of the newness that we might have experienced in past generations?
I mean, I don't necessarily think that's what he's saying. I think what he's saying is, I would take what he's saying at face value, but also just, I would expect more sequels purely because in the last several years, we've had several new IP. And, you know, when you have stuff like Horizon and Spider-Man and maybe even Returnal, you know, and they do well, and people like them, and they're a boon for the platform, like, yeah, you're going to see those studios make sequels to those things. That's usually how it works, and it's probably going to happen for a while before they dive back into the, all right, Insomniac, you've done Ratchet and Clank, you've done 3 Spider-Mans, what do you want to do new now? And even then, it's like, maybe we get Sunset Overdrive 2 after that, you know what I mean? Like, there's I would imagine that just because games are so expensive to make, it's probably a lot more appealing to just make something that has legs already. Because that was how it was even before it was this expensive. So I don't know if this is necessarily telegraphing that, you know, we're afraid to make new IPs, so you're going to see more sequels. I think we're going to see more sequels just by the nature of just the time that's passed since we've had new IPs.
Now, it's worth noting this TMT Post website is a Chinese outlet. And so the English is a little weird. If you go read it, I wanted to note that as well. But he does note a few things about even having the availability of Astrobot in the Chinese market and Horizon on PC and all the rest. Dustin, do you think he's trying to telegraph things, or is it more in line with what you think Chris is saying?
I feel like I read through a lot of this interview, and we've talked about people being media trained, and so much of this just sounds exactly like that, which I saw some people on Twitter sort of pick apart some of the things he said in what I felt was a disingenuous way. Like there's a part where he's like, we want only the best games.
Right.
And some people are extrapolating like, oh, then we're just only going to keep making the same stuff. And if you read the interview, he's talking about how developers, they want to make sure they have enough time in order to make the best games and not okay games, because people don't remember the games that were okay. They don't buy sequels. They want their games to be great right out the bat, which I think is a good, while be a little safe answer. But it's this whole interview, there was one important thing, well, not important, but funny thing. We talked in the past about Jim Ryan's lack of gaming, lack of playing.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, go on.
They asked him if he plays games, and he's like, right now I'm playing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Makes me happy. For me, this is a best game, is what he said. But then the next question, I want to read directly, which maybe this, I didn't take into context the fact that this was maybe translated weird. This person asks, or the TMT Post says, what is the best game you played last year? He responds, I personally think it is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which is my favorite and most enjoyable game in the last year. And I was like, dude, is that a bad translation or a deflect?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was reading those questions too, and I'm like, what in the God's name is he talking about? Because he says, because they ask, it says TMT Post, as a CEO of an entertainment company, do you often play games? He says, quote, not as often as I would like to, but I do play as often as I can. I'm currently playing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, etc., like Dustin said. And then later on, it asks him, and this was my favorite answer. We're talking about media training. This was by far the best answer out of Jim Ryan. TMT Post asks, what is the most anticipated game for PS5? He says, quote, this is really a very difficult question to answer. In the next year or so, the games from our studios will include Horizon Forbidden West, and then we have a new game of God of War. Of course, we also have many high-quality games developed by third parties available on PlayStation platforms. FIFA has always been popular, and so is Call of Duty. These games are very popular, high-quality games in the PlayStation community, whether it is from Sony or third party. If we just talk about the works from our own studios, the most anticipated will be Horizon Zero West and the next God of War. It's a boring ass answer and a very generic answer. And I know you don't want to call out this, that, or the other thing. You know what I think would have been a really flashy answer and interesting answer for him, although they don't want to take risks like this, is just say like, we don't want to pit our own studios against each other. We don't have like a favorite child, and we're fully rooting for all of these games coming out of our pipeline. But outside of our family, X is the game that we're really looking forward to hosting on PlayStation the most. You know, something like that. Like, right. Why can't you just talk like a human being? Why is that so hard?
Dude, it is a very sterile like way of speaking that he has. It's like, even if this is like, you know, poorly translated, you could tell that even if it was like properly said, it still would be like more it's actually more interesting because you can't tell what's like poorly translated. If it was just normal Jim Ryan, it'd be so boring. But he's always playing, I love how he's always playing the newest thing that is from PlayStation. It's like, man, what am I playing right now? What did we just do? That's the answer then.
Yeah, what am I reading all these memos about and we're obsessing about right now? Well, that's the game. I just feel like it's like, why can't you just be a human? The answer I gave you was like, it's such an easy and diplomatic answer. Oh, well, that's a great question. We have a lot of high quality studios working on a lot of games. Some of them have been announced, Horizon, God of War, etc. But a lot of them we haven't announced yet. We believe in all of them, and we don't want to pit our children against each other. But we really, really are excited about Back 4 Blood. And we're really looking forward to, give some call outs to some of your partners or whatever. It's a good way to maybe not like be so myopic.
And the two that he called out, it reminds me like maybe there's like a retired guy that's somehow ended up in the electronics sections for a day at Walmart. And a mom's like, what games should I get? And he's like, well, FIFA's always been popular, and that Call of Duty game. Like, it's just like the two like most like obvious things that he possibly could have said, like just like in a panic moment off the top of his head.
Yeah. I understand he's trying to talk to a broad market, Chinese market, kind of getting access to PlayStation for the first time, but I don't know. Seemed
You
boring
have to be an alien about it. You don't have to be a Roswell, New Mexico gray man when you're speaking to the fucking press.
Well, very well said. Well, we've been talking for well over an hour now, I think. So it's time for us to get into what we're playing. It seems appropriate to do that. Chris, let's kick it over to you first. You're playing Metro Exodus and Dying Light, I'm glad to see. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so still going through Metro Exodus. Really, still, I don't have much new to say about it. I'm still catching up to where I was before. But it runs really gorgeous. It runs so well. It looks fantastic. I'm really getting. I really like that world and that atmosphere a lot, especially like just that new lighting, man, transforms the game so drastically. It's insane. Like I actually have to use the flashlight they give me. And it feels like a completely different game now, which is awesome. But I'm still like working up to where I was before, so not much else to say about it. The audio work in that game is still terrible, though. With as far as like dialogue goes, there's no priority given to main characters. So like in cutscenes, like people in the background will be talking, and it'll be this just ambient conversation that is treated just as importantly as like the exposition that's being delivered to you, and it's like, oh my god. So I don't know what the hell is going on. It's just a cacophony whenever story is happening. But whenever you actually like play and you're like going like exploring and you're like wiping all the debris off your face and like checking your sight gauge and all this stuff, it's really cool. I love that presentation. The presentation of Metro is really good. And I started Dying Light on PC. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, we should play Dying Light." I didn't even know it had co-op.
Yeah,
but I was playing with three of my friends, and I'm surprised because I remember playing Dying Light, the single player, and being like, "This is okay. This story's a bit generic. Like, I like the way it plays, but I didn't give a shit about anybody in that game, like character wise or like lore wise. I don't really care. I want to hit zombies and by yourself, that's fun for a little bit. But that game sincerely shines quite a bit in a multiplayer setting in a way that I didn't think it would, because it's just you're chilling with people, but you're also smacking zombies across the street with like a frying pan and shit. It's just all this insane, because they did a Left 4 Dead crossover event that I had no idea.
Oh, cool.
And my friend was like, "Hey, I have access to this because I was here for the event. You don't. Let me make this for you." And he makes me this Left 4 Dead frying pan that just decimates zombies in like one hit. And I'm like, this is satisfying as hell, dude. Drop kicking and like the parkour feels really good. It's a solid game. I don't know what the hell's going on because I'm playing through like a co-op story. So I'm like, it's all completely in the background for me. But that game from just a gameplay perspective is really solid. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that you're enjoying it. Dying Light is probably one of my favorite PlayStation 4 games. I think maybe I'd have to really think about it, but maybe like top 5 on the console. That was to me like the first game that came to the console. I was like, this is fucking awesome, and it just felt different and it was unique, and I really love that game. So I'm excited about the sequel later this year. I think we're promising
December. I think
December, right? So
yeah,
finally, it's been a long time, man. That game came out in 2014, I think. Dustin, says you're playing A Plague Tale Innocence,
right?
Which is free right now on PlayStation Plus for PS5. What do you think?
Indeed, yeah. I'd played the beginning of this game maybe closer to around when it came out because I was playing it. I had like an EA Play subscription on PC. Holly was playing it with me. I was like, "This is a good narrative game," and she decided she was not into it. It was too stressful for her. Sometimes like certain games, she's like, "Yeah, I'm out." So I forgot about it for a bit, and I thought, you know what, this is a good opportunity to hop back in. And so this game is very good. I don't know if I would say it's great, but sometimes I like a good, sometimes great game. Like
sure.
it has a quality to it that reminds me of what's the Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade.
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 Yeah. It has, not that it's like Hellblade, but it feels like it's made with the same intentions. Very AAA level graphics, very focused on story, and it's on the shorter side as well. But it has those tellings of like the AAA, the budget AAA game. And this game is gorgeous. It is very beautiful. The environments in particular and the lighting are very cool. The faces and the animation are definitely feel off, a little stiff at points, and it almost hits the uncanny valley section for me sometimes. But it's a cool game. It wouldn't be for everybody though, in that a lot of this game is you and the other characters, your little brother, and you're fleeing from people that are trying to capture you. And so a lot of the game is hiding, and you are distracting guards and sneaking around. It has a lot of stealth in it actually, and a lot of it's also puzzles because you're trying to avoid the rat plague at the same time. Which, by the way, the rats. One of the coolest parts of this is that the DualSense, when you get near rats, you can feel them like scratching around in your controller, like a bunch of little feet almost, and it's very creepy.
Yeah,
it's very nice. Oh yeah, I like that. It was accurate. So obviously, this game is free on PlayStation Plus. Not free, but you know what I mean. So I highly recommend it. I am also getting some Last of Us vibes in that you're like helping someone get around, you're hiding. I wouldn't say it's like The Last of Us, but it's giving me that impression. I'm very intrigued by the story as well. Is very well done. But it's also the one last thing I'll say is just the team behind this, Asobo. They recently made Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was reading about them recently. I didn't know much about them. I had no idea. In fact, I thought Plague Tale: Innocence was the first game that they released.
Yeah,
and it's funny you say that. They did. And when I was reading about it, they made it. They weren't like a support studio or whatever. They made that game. And I was also struck with the fact that they worked on like a bunch of licensed stuff and was like with THQ and Codemasters and Disney. They were bouncing around a lot, and they did Connect games. So I didn't know that about them. And of course, A Plague Tale Requiem. Now that they're partnered with Focus Home Interactive on this series, that game comes out on PS4 and PS5. Or is it only PS5 actually? No, it's only a PS5 game.
Yeah.
That comes to because on Switch it won't even run on Switch. They're doing that like cloud thing with it, I think. And that comes out in 2022. Cool. Yeah. I've been meaning to check that game out. I actually bought it back in the day and just never. I played it for like a half an hour. I didn't get any of the trophies. So I didn't play it very long, and I was just like, I'm not feeling this right now. And then it's a place and time thing. The stealth thing, though, Chris, it reminded me maybe that's a game that you need. That's as closest to Sam Fisher as you're gonna get is some kids in the fucking plague tramping around Europe.
I know. All right, well, you didn't have to make me cry, but I understand. I've been eyeballing this game for a while. I know it's the type of game that I have to pick up when I'm in the mood for it. You know what I mean? Like Definitely. It's just this very atmospheric, very like, because that's what I was like with Hellblade, man. Like when I played Hellblade for the first time, I was like, the fuck is this? Like I don't care about this at all. And then like I played it like a year later, and they were like, oh, play it with headphones, and I was like, all right, and then I loved it. You know, it's just like you said, a place and time thing. And I can tell this is one of those experiences that I'm like, I gotta know that when I pick this game up, I'm not going to put it down immediately, because I'll do that with some games that I'll go on to like, and I don't want to deal with that again.
Right.
But I have it downloaded, so maybe when I'm done with Metro, I think I'll probably jump into it.
Cool. Yeah, it's on my list as well. And ironically, Metro is on my list too. It's just, I bought a game recently, although I don't know. I also bought like a random game because I was like spending hours on the PlayStation Store the other day, just reading, like watching trailers and just going through like the last year of games. And there's just so many games that come out, just so many. Yeah, here it is. Astalon Tears of the Earth is the game I bought. And it's like some like roguelike RPG, but it looked awesome. And I was like, I'm going to buy this. So I'm going to put that on my list as well to play soon. But the game I'm playing and I beat is Scarlet Nexus. I beat it with Yuito. There's two characters, Yuito and Kasane. They have like complementary stories. This game, Chris, I got to recant my my recommendation of this game to you, because I think you would really like the action, but it is so anime and it is so story heavy that I actually started tuning out. Like I actually, there was like a scene after the credits where I was like, I can't even fucking watch this, and I skipped it. I'm like, I don't even care about this. It was, and what Micah told me, and I was surprised by this game has a fucking anime that's like a complimentary anime, and I'm like, I don't even know what this game's about. It started out really cool about like this government and this revolution and this technology and these people with powers, but it just got so many layers of absurd that I was like, I don't know what's going on yet. I just really I really like playing it. I think it's a fun game. The visual novel stuff is just, I like visual novels sometimes, but it's just too much. I wanted to get into the next thing and I just stopped. I just tuned out at some point. And I want to go back and get the platinum and try to play with Kasani. I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, I did have a sneaking suspicion because you recommended it to me, and I did see like it looked exactly like, yeah, like I would like to play this, but I know it's just going to be one of these things where like I play it for a little bit and I'm going to get so annoyed. Because like I can just tell, which sucks because I really love the art style of it, like the art design of like the monsters or the demons you fight that are all like flowery.
Yeah,
and,
it's very weird.
Looking.
It's very cool.
It looks so cool, but I know me well enough to know that I can't do like 30 hours of an anime game, even if the action's good, because it has to be like Doom Eternal. You know what I mean? Where it's like that's it. You know, the game is just the good action and like maybe some pacing, but you know, the only visual novels I've ever really like enjoyed were the Phoenix Wright games.
Yeah,
so
those
like,
games are awesome.
And I only played those super recently, so like I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I love Phoenix Wright. Those came to the PS4 in 2019 if people are interested in playing them, but they obviously were in the West on the DS at first. I feel like with Scarlet Nexus as well, because you said it looks really cool. There is a really great design aesthetic with this, but I was also shocked, and I might have said it last week, but it's more budget than I thought it was. Like there's not actually a lot of like animation in it. It's a lot of comic book stilted stuff, and I'm a little shocked by that. And I beat it in about 30 hours, and I'm very strict about the clock, so it's pretty accurate. I would assume that it wouldn't be over the line to say that more than half of that is story, because it counts all of that. I don't think that that's out of line at all. So, I mean, I think I said last week too, you can go like a half an hour without playing the game. Like the game will just go on and on. It was, to their credit, maybe the longest ending I ever remembered playing in my, like, watching in my entire life. And that's cool.
Really? Metal Gear Solid 4?
I never beat MGS. How long is MGS4's ending? Is it like an hour or something like that?
It's fucking stupid. But it's unconscionably long.
Yeah. I don't need that. I never needed that when I should. I mean, that's an interesting kind of design thing, but I like the reward of a satisfying end of the story, like 5-10 minutes. If it's a AAA game, like wrap it up, leave the cliffhanger. Let's get. But this thing, it was going. I'm like, I don't even know what I don't even know who this person is. There's like this new character, blonde chick comes. I'm like, I don't even know who this is, and there's like these different timelines and all this. So that's a me problem. But if you're into that sort of thing, it's a shame because, well, it's not a shame. I mean, if people are into that storytelling, it's fine. The game is so fun. The mechanics in the game are fucking awesome. I don't know that I recommend full cost for a lot of people to play this game if they want to just check out the gameplay. But if it drops in price, maybe check it out if you want to check out the gameplay, because it is a very wise and smart way to have an action RPG with a party and not be overwhelmed with it, and give you lots of different options and permutations in which you interact with things. It's very cool. And like Chris said, the enemy designs are phenomenal. Everything has like a light bulb. Like that's the whole thing. And like your special attack, if you whittle enough of the armor away, you rip the light bulb away from the enemy, and each one has like a cool, and you shatter it and the enemy dies like automatically. And it has like this really dark and cool aesthetic to it. It's a very cool game from that regard. So Scarlet Nexus out there if you're interested. Now, Michael J. Buffle wrote in, and actually his name on Patreon is all capitalized. So it's Michael J. Buffle. Says, have you guys tried out Arcadegeddon or have any interest in doing so? I'm hearing good things about it, and at $20 for early access, I might dive in to try out a first-party shooter. So second party technically, but I will say that, and it's from Ilphonic, established second party now with Sony. Maybe a company Sony would be interested in one day. I don't know. But Gio Corsi, who listens to this show, used to be a big shot at Sony, a personal friend of mine, a good friend of mine. He sent me codes for everyone to check it out. I told him that it wasn't my kind of game, but I passed those codes along to Chris and Dustin. I was surprised, actually. I mean, to the game's credit, it seems like more people are interested in it than I thought. I have a maxed out 2,000 friends list on PS5, and it was something, you know how it says, like, when you have a game, it's like 21 other people or 18 other people or something. It was like in the 20s. Other people bought it and that list. And I was like, that's pretty good, actually. So did either of you try this, Chris? Did you try it at all yet?
I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I mean, if I can try it for free, then I'll try it. You know, like I'm not going to write off a game, you know, just because it looks a little weird. But I still maintain, like, my assumption going in, like, blind before playing is that I just feel like, from the way it looks, it just reminds me a lot of Fortnite, and I'm hoping that if I jump into this thing, it's not going to just consistently do that. But, you know, I'm interested in checking it out, I guess. I just thought the showcase wasn't particularly good. Like, what they showed at the State of Play was just kind of a little underwhelming.
Sure. Like,
games can have bad trailers also. That's also something that's worth acknowledging. Like, a good game can be showcased in a really garbage way. In the same way that a really terrible game can be showcased in a great way. If you remember the original Dead Island trailer with that amazing CGI reverse, like, crazy piano score, and then you got this ridiculously janky fucking pile of trash. I don't know. I'm curious about it. I didn't expect to see so many people playing it. I saw that on my friends list as well. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it shows how detached from reality in this multiplayer space I think I am. Dustin, are you gonna give it a go?
I did play. I played through the tutorial intro portion, and then I feel like it's a game that it's pretty multiplayer focused. So I was hoping to see if someone else wanted to try it with me to get the true experience. I didn't. I haven't played enough to give a full opinion yet, but sure. I'm still wanting to.
Well, we'll see how that all goes. We don't solicit codes from anyone, but every once in a while there's an exception. Well, we don't ever solicit them, period. But when someone, a friend of the show or whatever, wants us to check something out, we're happy to do that. So that's the example here. We're gonna reach another one with Rainbite and Trigger Witch soon too, because we're definitely gonna get codes for that, and I'm not gonna say no to that because a friend of mine wrote it and I want to check it out in John O'Peck. So all right, let's get into the news finally. I think it's time. A few things to talk about this week. Number one, while it should come as little surprise, we finally have confirmation. Ghostwire Tokyo has been delayed and will no longer launch in 2021. If you need to brush up, Ghostwire Tokyo is a console-exclusive PlayStation 5 game developed by Bethesda-owned studio Tango Gameworks. Bethesda, of course, was recently purchased by Microsoft, but this deal was in place beforehand, just like with fellow Bethesda-owned team and their 2021 shooter Deathloop, which we talked about last week. It's expected to be a timed exclusive. The game, as you may recall, was revealed back at E3 in 2019, with Shinji Mikami protege Akume Nakamura acting as creative director, a big deal for a studio that was founded by Mikami, who steered the studio's first two games in 2014's The Evil Within and its 2017 sequel, both released on PS4. However, we haven't learned a whole lot about the game since, and Nakamura notably left the project last year, a bad sign for an in-development game, although she's pregnant, or probably already had her kid. So it's not necessarily that bad. One-time Kojima associate Kenji Kimura has since taken over as creative director, and he presumably helped usher in this wise delay, which, according to the team's brief statement, is being made to, quote, protect the health of everyone at Tango, end quote. Presumably a reference to crunch conditions being necessary to get it out in 2021, and perhaps also a wink to COVID, which undoubtedly also helped delay the game. So it'll now come in early 2022. Ghostwire Tokyo, a game about a version of Tokyo in which almost every living person in the city disappears, will be eligible for release in the console space outside of PlayStation beginning in 2023. I want to note again, because a lot of people are telling me things that I haven't said. I just want to note again that what I'm saying is that this game hasn't explicitly been announced for Xbox yet. And so we don't, and the exclusivity windows are flexible, I think, because Final Fantasy VII is well outside of its exclusivity window right now, well outside of it. And you have seen no announcement of that game coming to Xbox, for instance. Dustin, let's start with you with this one. Ghostwire is kind of a mystery. We don't know very much about this game. We don't even really know very much about what it's about. We haven't seen too much about it. I think Nakamura's exit, whether it was ignominious or planned, interrupted the flow. I don't think that was intended, clearly, because they showcased her so loudly at 2019's E3. I'm excited about this game. And of course, Mikami has serious credibility in horror. So I am eager to get my hands on this game, maybe even more so than Deathloop, which I am an advocate for. I think that game also looks awesome, but I'm in some way more excited about this.
Yeah, I'm a little, I don't really know what to think about this game, if I'm being honest. We saw that one, I think they had one big trailer, and it kind of wasn't, I think, what people expected. It was like kind of first person, a little more on the action side than horror. But as you said, Mikami is, huge legend in that space. So
yeah, the director of the original Resident Evil, just for people that don't know, and longtime steward of that franchise.
Right. And so it could be also possible that they saw some of the feedback from that trailer, which, I mean, a lot of things are probably locked in, but they thought, okay, well, maybe there's still time to adapt this in different ways in order to, focus in on the feedback that we got. Either way, though, I'm curious just because Evil Within 1 and 2, those are games that I hear such mixed stuff about. The people that like those games really advocate for them. And I'm pretty sure neither one of them even reviewed that well. I know the first Evil Within, did not review very well. But
yeah, it's got I'm looking at it now. It's got a 75 on Metacritic, so that's okay. And then that's 2014, and then the 2017 sequel is a 76, so around the same.
76. Not bad at all.
Yeah, not great. I mean, not worth them pursuing it anymore, obviously. So,
right.
Chris, I'm curious what your take is with this. I'm a little disappointed that Mikami seems to be falling to the wayside at the studio. He founded this studio. Obviously, he also founded Platinum. So people have to remember, he went from Capcom to Platinum, and then he founded Tango Gameworks. And he has been an executive producer of other games. Like, he was the executive producer of the original Phoenix Wright. He was the executive producer of what was I thinking of? Oh, Devil May Cry, and obviously all those old also the director of Dino Crisis, which was a Capcom classic back in the day, and the producer of Beautiful Joe and all of the rest. But more recently, he's been kind of quiet, and I wonder, he directed The Evil Within, but he actually didn't direct The Evil Within 2, and he's only acting as the executive producer of this game. So I wonder, to Dustin's point, I wonder what this game even is, but I'm excited about it. What do you think about all of this and where it might fit into the catalog?
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the trailer initially, like the first one, the tease, and it was a lot more horror oriented. It looked like something that was going to be a lot more, not Silent Hill-esque, but definitely like more in that vein than the Resident Evil vein. And then we got this thing that kind of looked like almost like an arcane game a little bit, if I'm remembering it correctly. There's like a lot of, like, a surprising amount of action, more color than I was anticipating. So like, whatever this thing turns into, I'm inherently curious, because it's looked like two completely different things the only two times I've seen it. So almost just sheer curiosity has me kind of like really interested in this. Also because there aren't that many, horror games aren't necessarily, outside of Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 8 Village, I can't think of another one recently that's been particularly big or interesting. So I'm curious to play this. I'm far more excited for Deathloop. That's far more my kind of game. But I think this is probably going to be a really interesting thing, like whatever this is. Assuming that this delay is really like, genuinely like just, hey, let's avoid crunch and let's just get shit done, and not like a, oh my god, what have we done to delay.
Right. I
which is, begs to be, we don't know. We won't know for sure until it's out. But
I feel confident about this game. I don't know, Dustin, if it's ill-guided, but Sony saw this game and bought it. Remember that when the game was announced, it was done agnostically. And when it was revealed, and then it was later revealed that during development, obviously Sony went in and gobbled it up. And we know that they did the same thing with Deathloop, and these are obviously both timed exclusives in some way, whether that's exercised or not, we'll see. And then we know, as we've talked about ad nauseum on the show, they tried to do the same thing with Starfield. So I feel like Sony willing to go in early and say, like, we want these games is a sign that there's something to be excited about here, which is the same reason why I think Deathloop, not only looks good, but is exciting.
Right. Yeah, it could be that. Part of me, the fact that Bethesda was shopping these 3 games out also tells me that they were in financial trouble of some sort, which makes sense that maybe they got bought. But I don't know. I could, at the same time, to play devil's advocate with myself, I wouldn't see Sony buying a game exclusivity for a game that they didn't think would be very good. So who knows?
Yeah, they don't often back out of their deals either. I mean, obviously something went wrong with that game Wild, right? At some point, we haven't seen that. Some of their first party games don't come out. Famously, the game from Don't Nod, Remember Me, a lot of people forget that was supposed to be a PlayStation exclusive. And Sony was like, man, we don't want this. And at some point during development, and Capcom came in and saved that game. That was going to be a PS3 exclusive. So they don't tend necessarily to show their hand. I mean, obviously during the early PS3 years, there was a lot of questionable third-party games, especially. So anyway, we'll keep an eye out on this. Not a huge surprise. I was kind of wondering why we hadn't heard more about this. And I imagine it's somewhat frustrating, although not a huge deal to Microsoft, that these studios are just kind of stuck working on this stuff for now and can't really do anything for them, especially Tango. I mean, it seems like Tango is smaller and has less to work with. So, all right, let's move on to this next one here. This is an exciting piece of news for a lot of people. I don't want to temper it too much. I'll be interested to see what you guys think. Number 2, an interesting new fighting game has been announced. It's called Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, and it's a Smash Brothers-like multiplayer fighting game wherein players can choose from a number of Nickelodeon-aligned characters. According to website IGN, which revealed the game, the following characters have been announced so far, though more announcements are expected, and you can see these all in the trailer if you want. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob SquarePants are in. Leonardo and Michelangelo from TMNT. Lucy and Lincoln from The Loud House. Nigel from The Wild Thornberries. Ablina from Ah Real Monsters. Powder Toast Man from Ren and Stimpy. Reptar from Rugrats. Zim from Invader Zim. Helga from Hey Arnold. And the titular Danny Phantom. According to the website, the game will come packing 20 theme stages and indeed appears to be in complete embrace of its Smash Brothers influence, according to the available trailer. While the idea is rock solid, it's easy to be far more skeptical of the devs and publishers behind the project, however. The game is being co-developed by studios Ludosity and Fairplay Labs, and this is by a mile the largest game either has ever worked on. And it's being published by Game Mill Entertainment, which has been behind some pretty rough licensed games in the past, including G.I. Joe Operation Blackout, Nickelodeon Kart Racers, Cobra Kai, The Saga Continues, and more. Their Cartoon Network Battle Crashers game has a 21 on Metacritic. Now, it's not the same developer. What I'm saying, though, is that this publisher does not have an eye for talent. So, and also has had both the Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon IP in their possession before this game and fucking squandered them. So them doing a Nickelodeon game is meaningless. But I have had people reach out saying that the studios that are working on this game have done smaller brawler-like games. And so like there's a little bit of promise here. So we'll see what happens. But I am skeptical. Callan Kelly asks, hey, CDC, am I alone in thinking this new Nickelodeon Smash-type fighter looks awesome? Reminds me of when we used to get fun licensed titles like Nicktoons MLB. But what say you fine folks? Chris, what do you think about the announcement of, what is it, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl?
I'm more happy that this exists than I am excited at the thought of playing it. You know what I mean? Like I'm it brings me great joy to see like Powdered Toast Man.
That's awesome.
Like in a mod, like I never expected to see that character ever again in any context. Like even just like on YouTube clips of like Ren and Stimpy, because how often am I really searching for that? You know, like, so to see that in like Invader Zim and like the Wild Thornberries in like a modern game is kind of cool. Cause like those are shows that I remember watching when I was a kid, when I was a wee lad. But I don't know, man, there's some parts of this trailer that this is going to be a frustrating game, I can tell, because like there's this one clip that somebody isolated, because on Twitter, specifically on social media, everybody was like kind of like memeing about it because all the Smash community was like, oh man, look at Patrick's down grab or whatever the hell. And they were like being like, and it just looks like it doesn't look like it's really going to be like a proper competitive thing. But I could see this being like a fun like party game for like kids or even some adults. I could see this being fun to stream kind of. But there's no way in hell this is going to have like any like competitive, scene. I saw Patrick grab Nigel Thornberry from like 3 whole like yards away in like one of the clips in the trailer, and I was like, that looks so broken.
I didn't even look at it through the mechanical lens because I was so caught up in just the full embrace, like I said, of the Smash Brothers ethos, which I even found the name to be interesting because Brawl and All-Stars are all in the name, which is a reference to the 2 All-Stars, and obviously on our side, but obviously the very popular and very well regarded Smash Brothers. I wonder, Dustin, what you think of this. I mean, so my take on this is that I'm older than you guys. So the Nicktoons and Nickelodeon stuff I grew up with is a little different. It's cool to see Ren and Stimpy in here. That was one of the first, obviously. And it's also nice to see. I thought it was my favorite thing. I'm not a huge Rugrats fan, but I like that they got Rugrats in by using Reptar. I think that's a super cool idea because obviously you're not going to have I think it would be awesome if like Tommy Pickles was in there. That'd be hysterical. But they're probably not going to be able to do that. But I look at it and I'm like, well, I was a fan of some of this different stuff, like Rocko's Modern Life isn't in here. Doug isn't in here. Although as I understand it, Doug isn't even owned by Nickelodeon anymore and hasn't been in like a long ass time. So that's not going to be in there. That's
a Disney thing now.
Right. So we'll see. Dustin, I'm wondering, well, I mean, let me pitch this to you maybe in some, I'm not going to pitch this next question to you yet. I'll pitch it to both of you. Dustin, tell me your general thoughts. I'm sorry, first.
I expect this game to be bad, but it will be fun. And that's okay. You can have a bad game that is fun. I would not pick this up for full price. Don't pre-order this game. But I think it's a fun idea. I smiled when I saw the Real Monsters character, but they said they had more surprises, and I want them to take it further. I want them to put some Nick Jr. characters in there. Let's get Little Bear in there. Let's get Peppa Pig, maybe Maisie.
That would be awesome if they did that. I would love that.
Dude, Bob the Builder. Like, they could get I can understand that they probably wouldn't want to have, some of these children's characters fighting, but I don't know. What about Face? Do you guys remember Face? What if Face, what if they could do like a special item where like Face like slams down on the screen or something?
That would be amazing. Yeah, I would like Blue and like they should just get Steve from Blue's Clues, but just like not even like a render, just like the way they used to do it in
Mortal Kombat.
In Mortal Kombat, just really amazing. Like in-depth stop motion that's like sequentially like algorithmically animated. That'd be so cool. But yeah, I hope that there's more. Like I would hope for Rocco because that's stuff that I remember fondly, and even a lot of this, like I don't know what the fuck the Loud House is, but like I remember Real Monsters, and Invader Zim was around the time that I stopped really paying that much attention to Nickelodeon. Although I will say, Hey Arnold has aged exceptionally well. Like that is actually like a fantastic show, like still, but it's cool as shit to see this. It's just nice. It's nice to see some people are getting the characters they want in their character crossover fighter.
Is it possible they were making the Drake Bell character and they had to cut it?
Yeah. Oh no.
They're like, fuck. See, that so was much like dev time lost.
See, that was like a whole era of Nickelodeon that I missed. Like the whole, I don't even know, like what is it, Josh and Drake or whatever?
Drake and
Josh. Like that's totally like after probably like Space Cases and shit. Like you guys probably wouldn't even remember that. Like mid 90s. That was like the last time I ever remembered watching Nickelodeon. Then I kind of went over to Cartoon Network. But I have a real affinity for a lot of that stuff. Ren and Stimpy is awesome. And I agree with you, like Powder Toast Man being in there is great. That's what I like about this roster is it doesn't seem like they're beholden in the same way Smash Brothers or especially PS All-Stars was in the way of like, get the biggest of all of these, right? Instead, it's like just random characters. Obviously, you need to have like SpongeBob in there, but it's hysterical that Patrick's in there. I think it's awesome. Or and instead of Ren or Stimpy, which maybe one of them will be in it too, it's Powder Toast Man or it's Reptar. I think it's cool in the main, but I am skeptical to the max about this game, and it's a shame, man, because Nickelodeon needs to partner with a better publisher. They're Nickelodeon. You don't need to. No offense to Game Mill, but it's not good, and you don't have to do this.
Well, yeah. Well, Nickelodeon is actually not the prized goose that it once was. Outside of SpongeBob, dude, SpongeBob is I think probably the most profitable like thing that's ever existed, but that's really the only thing they have that's even remotely to that strata of profitability and quality. It's just everything else is just kind of like it's just the SpongeBob network, really. That's why SpongeBob is here. And I hope Cat Dog's in there. That's another one.
That'd be cool.
Dude, that'd be a unique moveset there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You could do some interesting stuff with Cat Dog.
Yeah, and Angry Beavers. Get one of those guys in there. Yeah, be some cool stuff in there. All right, well, we'll keep an eye out on that. That comes out this fall. All right, Dustin, this next one's for you. Number 3. Believe it or not, the Persona franchise is celebrating its 25th anniversary in September. The original game, the PS1 JRPG Revelations Persona, launched in both Japan and North America in late 1996. The series has since seen 4 core releases, as well as more than a dozen spin-offs. But even with the surging popularity of the series in the West with Persona 4 on PS2 and later Vita, and especially with Persona 5 on PS3 and PS4, most of the games in the series are locked away on older hardware. That's why word that developer Atlus and publisher Sega are going to reveal 7 new products, some games, over the next year or so, all from the Persona franchise is so exciting. Details are otherwise scarce, except that the announcements will begin in September, and it's a given that the final announcement will be Persona 6. Website Push Square notes that not all of the announcements are likely to be games, and website Persona Central reminds us that even the game announcements won't necessarily be core, as a game codenamed X is widely believed to be one of the 7 to be revealed and is a Persona spin-off for mobile. Other announcement possibilities include anime or other pieces of entertainment, but the core announcements will no doubt be the games. Assumptions include a Persona 4 console port, a Persona 5 fighting game, and other possibilities, not to mention, other possibilities not particularly relevant to the show, including bringing Persona to Xbox for the first time or Persona 5 to Switch. Persona, which has sold a cumulative 15 million copies worldwide across all releases since 1996, saw its last release in the Omega Force-developed Musou Persona 5 Strikers, which came to Western PS4s earlier this year. Persona 5, the last mainline release, launched in the West on both PS3 and PS4 in 2017. So very vague, as always, with Atlus, annoyingly so. My assumption, the working assumption is that Persona 6 will be the final announcement, right? So everything leading up to this is speculative. What do you think is going to happen, Dustin?
Yeah, so they're definitely going to reveal a new protagonist because of part of their announcement. They're having a bunch of merch, and so they're doing. I'm trying to tell what these are. These artwork, some kind of cards or something with each protagonist from all the different games, and so they have the first game, and then they have 2 for the second game for the 2 different versions, and then they have 3. And then they have the 3 female version from Persona 3 Portable, 4, 5. And then they have a 6th card or an 8th card that just says secret. So whatever this is, they're going to be revealing a new protagonist to Persona. Whether that's if it was a new protagonist for a mobile spinoff, that would be like the most deflating announcement ever. But I'm honestly like, I don't know. I'm trying to think about the timeline for Persona 6. It could be about time to announce it.
Persona 6 is to just simply acknowledge it even, in some way.
Right. This game, Persona 6, though, will be interesting in that a lot of the core Persona team is now off of Persona. They're now working on a game called Project Re-Fantasy for the moment. So, there's a lot riding on Persona 6. The series is bigger than ever, and it doesn't have their mainstays working on it. But I'm excited about the spinoffs. I think the dancing games are cool. I think that the fighting game, a Persona 5 fighting game, would be awesome.
Yeah, just to remind people, there was a Persona 4 fighting game called Arena. So that's why people are it's not like just coming out of nowhere that would happen. Right. And that was Arc System Works, I think, that did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Personally, I just want the Persona 3 and 4 ports on console more than anything. And I think it's time. You've got this roster of characters from all your different games. And they've done some crossover stuff, like the 3DS game is a crossover, but I think it's time to do something a little more official, some kind of spin-off game that includes all of these characters that people have loved for years. That's my wish.
It's so interesting that they've only sold 15 million copies of all Persona games. And it really goes to show you this bubble we're in, where one of the most, I mean, when I look back at the things I was wrong about, both publicly and privately, which is a lot because I've said and done a lot of things in the industry, so it just happens. One of the things I remember telling my bosses at IGN, we were really getting aggressive about Persona coverage, and I was trying to get them to send me, or not really me, we were going to send, I think, Vincent Genito or someone to Japan to work with Atlas to reveal Persona 5. And I was like, Persona 5 is going to outsell Final Fantasy 15. It's a completely outrageous comment. Like, I don't know what I remember saying. I was like, that's a completely outrageous comment. And when you see the numbers here, like, for instance, Resident Evil Village is at almost 4 million units sold. So it just goes to show you how niche it is. Chris, dare I rather throw this at you, but what do you want out of Persona?
I have no idea what this even is. Like, not even, I feel like I it's like explaining the Silmarillion to my dad, you know, who's just like this Vietnam vet guy who's like, I don't know, is that elves and shit? You know, I don't know what Persona is. It's like a high school dating sim JRPG or something. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, well, that's good enough. I totally understand.
I'm gonna get so much mail.
Oh no,
but it's not a dating sim.
Yeah, it's like there's some sort of relationship management in it.
Yeah,
but it's not necessarily romantic only.
Right,
but it can be.
All right, this one also really isn't for Chris, although it's more for Chris, although it's still a very Dustin question, and for maybe even me more than anything. Number 4, there are a couple of pieces of Final Fantasy news worth reporting. First, the bad, albeit expected news. Final Fantasy 16 isn't anywhere close to being ready. As reported by website GameSpot, Naoki Yoshida, longtime director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV and the producer of Final Fantasy 16, noted during a Final Fantasy XIV related live stream that the main story to the game is almost finished, with English VO almost done. However, the game won't be shown at Tokyo Game Show later this year, and we're unlikely to see it again until 2022 at the earliest. When it launches on PlayStation 5 is anyone's guess, but he told a Japanese publication that, quote, development is going well. It's quite difficult to make sure the quality is amazing. We want the next announcement to be something where everyone watches and says, I am going to buy this game, end quote. Well, you already got me the first trailer. The game, revealed as a timed PS5 exclusive, will be the first mainline Final Fantasy game since 2015's long in development, Final Fantasy 15. As for the other news, it's even worse. Final Fantasy X-3 may become a reality. Word comes by way of website RBG Site, which translated a story out of Japanese gaming publication Famitsu, in which Tetsuya Nomura, our favorite, longtime Squaresoft and Square Enix employee who most recently directed Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, said in part, quote, if we are to make X-3, we somehow have a synopsis written by Nojima-san. It's sleeping right now, but the plot itself does exist, ellipsis. The probability of us making it is not zero. We are not in a phase where we can talk about it unless we have finished producing Final Fantasy VII Remake, end quote. The reference to Nojima-san is to that of scribe Kazushige Nojima, the writer of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII and 8 and Final Fantasy X. However, with Final Fantasy VII Remake widely understood to be a trilogy, and with the second of the 3 games still likely midway through development, we may be indeed a ways off from hearing about this again. When I read this, I almost shrieked in horror because out of all of the things that they can be doing with old Final Fantasy games, revisiting that game again is an affront to all things Final Fantasy. Similarly to how they spent 3 games on Final Fantasy 13, which was ridiculous. Like, I don't know who wanted to see Lightning for this long, who cared about this. Why are they so fixated on the wrong games? Dustin, what do you think about this news?
Man, well, I was thinking about the Final Fantasy 16 part, first of all, in that they announced it. Was that this year? No, it was last year. It was at the PS5 thing. So we can expect the game then in 2030. How long was it between Final Fantasy 15? Because they announced it as a Jito 13.
Right.
And then I think it was close to 10 years, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, they revealed it for PS3, and I think it was Final Fantasy Versus, I think. And
right. Oh, that's it. Versus.
And I think it was revealed like right when the PS3 was revealed, around there, wasn't it? So
yeah,
we waited a long time for that. It was obviously a very different game. I'm a little more concerned about this 10-3 thing, though, just because I feel like they started to kind of finally get it recently. And it's like, why are you saying this? Why are you talking about this right now? Why can't Nomura just stop with the craziness already? What do you think?
can't.
Yeah.
He can't resist. Kingdom Hearts has ruined his mind, and now he just is. Now he's coming for Final Fantasy VII, and who knows what's next. But I don't know. I mean, the only thing that could possibly be worse is if they decide to do Final Fantasy 13-4.
Dude, I'm going to kill myself if they do that. Just straight up. I'll make a whole ceremony. We'll publish it on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. It's just that I appreciate that they went back to Final Fantasy IV and did that after year stuff. I thought that was really cool. That was a long time ago. That was on Wii originally. And obviously we talked recently about Final Fantasy IX, which is a great game being revisited. It's like, stop. You guys can't even get the first 6 games on the PlayStation and you're talking about 10.3. I don't want to hear about 10.3 until you get those 6 games on PlayStation and you finish Final Fantasy VII Remake. And we also know, Nomura, that you're in the Kingdom Hearts land, so who knows? This is the whole thing. It's like, why does Nomura just float this shit? Been doing it for years. And we don't want 10.3. Sorry, please don't message me about it. I've spoken. And that's it. Chris, I won't even bother throwing this at you because I
yeah. I didn't even realize 10 was that hated.
It's not. I just hate it. A lot of people like 10. 10 to me was the beginning of the end for Final Fantasy. Like, it was, oh my God. I'll never forget how flabbergasted I was when I was playing that game. I was like, what? Coming off of Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 7, 6, 4, 5 we even got in the West. It's like, oh my God, what a step backwards that was, in my opinion. Still, it's available on Vita if you want to go play it there. All right, number 5. Seems like Gran Turismo 7 is slowly crawling towards the development finish line. Gran Turismo-centric website GT Planet reports on 2 things that indicate that we're getting close. The first and most important piece of information is that Sony seemed to have accidentally published a beta invite scheme of some sort to its website. As relayed by GT Planet, the Experience PlayStation app. So this is what I was talking about earlier. The Experience PlayStation app, connected to the last PXX show in 2017, will ultimately lead inquiring players to a Gran Turismo beta test, so-called Quest, on the app. After watching a trailer, the player is then given an option to unlock the game's beta early, though the code given is a placeholder and not a valid PSN 12-digit code. As noted on the website, quote, that all rather strongly indicates that this promotion itself seems to be a test, which has rather inadvertently appeared for public consumption, end quote. In other words, Sony might have been storing these various functions on the app and in other locales under the expectations that these things would be tested without anyone finding out. The other less compelling but still important information is that Gran Turismo branded official PlayStation 5 driving wheels have started popping up for sale online. According to GT Planet, at least 2 different people have been selling an official GT steering wheel for PS5 called the DD Pro. The wheel comes from third-party hardware manufacturer Fnatic and is emblazoned with the GT logo at the center of the wheel. The website states that it's unclear if these are real, but they certainly seem to be. GT7, announced in 2020, is due on both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in 2022, and is under development at Sony-owned racing studio Polyphony Digital, which has been working almost exclusively on Gran Turismo for nearly 25 years. This will be the first Gran Turismo game since PS4's GT Sport in 2017. So, Chris, I thought this was interesting. It seems, I mean, this is my theory, is that it seems that Sony realized that they had some app that there is no reason for anyone to fuck with and anymore. This ancient app. And they're like, they used it to test this Gran Turismo beta test and someone figured it out, which I think is pretty funny. But is there any interest with Gran Turismo? Because I feel like this game is actually very important. And we don't state it too much on this show because we're not racing fans per se, but the racing space is becoming very, very popular and very, very cluttered. Obviously, EA made a huge play, outbid 2K to get Codemasters so they can have an annualized series of racing games and more attention paid to Need for Speed. And then on the other side, we have Xbox investing portions of 2 studios, one entire studio in Turn 10, and then obviously a team at Playground in Forza. So this is a space that Sony needs to do well in. And it's kind of sad for them because they've kind of lost the... Polyphony was like the gold standard of racing. And I don't know that people really feel that way anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm interested in this more than I would have been maybe a year ago, only because I only recently kind of, and I know this is on the other side of the aisle here, but like Xbox started doing game streaming recently, and I was like, oh, let's see what I can stream. And the new Forza was on there, and I was like, that's a pretty easy thing to jump into. Like, whatever, I'll try that. Or the most recent Forza, I should say, not the new one. But And I tried it out and I was like, oh, this is kind of not bad. This is kind of good. Like maybe I feel like something was clicking as far as like racing games that it hasn't really before. So I'm actually like a lot more curious about like how this Gran Turismo is going to turn out now. Whereas a year ago, I probably would have been completely, like, totally disinterested. But this beta, I mean, if they're doing a beta test for it, you would presume, like, when does Gran Turismo usually launch? Do they have like a specific like tradition as far as like launching in like a season or?
No, I mean they're all over the map. Remember that Gran Turismo 5 or no, Gran Turismo 6, I'm sorry, came to PS3 in December of 2013, which made no sense because that was after PS4 had come out. So there is no
Right.
traditional launch window. No.
Yeah, I'm trying to like, I guess there's no way to do it then because I was trying to think of like maybe it's like, is there a way to pinpoint this beta if it's like if it's like towards the end of development, it's coming out in 2022. Could this be like a 2021 beta, like in some facet? But I'm super curious about this actually. Like it's been a while since we had a Gran Turismo game, and ideally, if I'm gonna jump in, I'd rather jump into the newest possible point.
Sure. I'll note too, I mean, it's been so long that, not that we've been doing the show forever, but a Gran Turismo game has not come out in the entire time we've been doing the show. So it has, it has been a while. And I will throw this to you, Dustin, in this way. I wonder what you think about, because I know you're not a racing fan per se, but I feel like Sony was actually getting kind of clever here. It seemed like they were like accidentally publishing things on websites that people were finding out that they were storing stuff on this old PlayStation Experience app, which is awesome. I think that's actually really cool. It was under everyone's nose, but we don't know necessarily that this necessarily suggests the GT7 beta is coming. But it seems like they, like GT Planet went through the whole rigmarole with the app and were given like a 12-digit code that doesn't work. So it seems like everything else actually does work, and maybe they'll eventually get it going where it needs to go.
Yeah, that app is interesting because they kind of they used it for PlayStation Experience, but then I have a very personal connection in that after PlayStation Experience, I was able to get an industry pass to E3 from that app because Sony, I guess, was just like giving them out. I think I saw it on like Wario 64. And then I think they also used that app at events to book appointments. So like at a PAX or E3, you could use the Experience app to go in and book an appointment. But you are right. Even if it wasn't since PlayStation Experience, I'm guessing they haven't done anything with that since whatever. Can't think of what the last event they would have been at. Maybe
E3
PAX
2000.
West?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess the exciting, or at least thing that I'm thinking of, I don't think it's connected, but I'm like, we have heard things that they re-trademarked the name PlayStation Experience. And so
that's true. That is
they
true.
may be just testing stuff, not only with Gran Turismo, but maybe they're flirting around with this idea of PlayStation Experience or using that name in one way or another. So I would love for them to bring it back. I know there's maybe talk of that later in the show, so we'll save it, but could be related.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. Let's get into this next piece of news, which is not a huge surprise. Number 6, the obviously suspicious Resident Evil aligned multiplayer game Reverse has been delayed. As you may recall, Reverse is the multiplayer component that was originally set to release alongside Resident Evil Village, Capcom's recent survival horror smash hit that has already surpassed 3.5, I think it was, million copies sold. I have 4.5 written here. Reverse was then delayed until this month, July, and all has been quiet since until now. On their social media feeds, Capcom revealed that Reverse has been pushed way back until 2022, quote, so that the team can continue working to deliver a smooth gameplay experience. We will share updated launch details at a later time. Thank you for your patience and understanding, end quote. This delay is actually shocking since Capcom said only weeks ago that Reverse would come out in July. However, expectations were very low. With Resident Evil Village's meteoric success, Capcom likely decided that it was wiser to hold the game and make it as good as it can be, rather than risking tarnishing a great game with a shitty, ill-conceived add-on. Capcom's Resident Evil, spanning all the way back to the 1996 PS1 original, has been at the forefront of survival horror and pioneered the genre. Chris, what do you make of this delay? Do you think my working theory here is right, that Resident Evil Village is so well regarded that you don't want to tarnish it with something that is bad? And I think they realized that they were going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense. This thing looked rushed from the moment we saw it. It didn't. I mean, I honestly don't think that there is a way to make a Resident Evil PvP game that is particularly good. I don't know if anybody, if given enough time, could do that, because I think any winning formula for PvP would have to follow the formula of something else so drastically, to the point where it's not even really a Resident Evil game that you're playing anymore. Like, you could probably have like a Resident Evil themed like Rainbow Six game, but at that point, is it even?
Or like,
you know,
what
like,
about Evolve or something like that? That always came to mind for me.
yeah, but then that's what it would be then, wouldn't it? Like
the
it would
asymmetric kind
just
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't. They would have to build this thing from scratch for it to be particularly good. I think this is probably just like a, hey, this is not ready. I doubt this thing is going to be amazing, but maybe if we push it, it can at least be something that isn't a complete and utter pie in the face of the thing we just made that everybody loves. And, you know, maybe that's unfortunate, and maybe that's not like a super charitable interpretation of the game, but like, this game looks like shit. Like I really don't understand like who this is for, but like, God bless him. Hope they can make something out of it. But I don't see how a delay of any kind is going to help unless they just straight up go back to the drawing board, because I just don't think this works.
It does seem, to your point, to be an old sort of feeling that Capcom feels like they need to staple these multiplayer games into, or these multiplayer components into these games that are otherwise great on their own. And they did that with Resident Evil 3 remake, which really didn't need it, and they did it here. And I know they're trying to prop up the value, Dustin, but they know this is bad. I mean, it's not they know. You don't just say in June that the game's coming out in July and then say, oh no, now the game's coming out at least 6 months at the soonest from now. So it has to be right that someone inside was like, we can't do this. We need to get this at least as far away as humanly possible from Village, even though we very foolishly promised everyone that bought Village that we would get to give them this for free, even though they don't want it. So it's a very confusing situation, but they're doing the next best thing from canceling it, which is saying like, well, we might as well polish this turd. I mean, that is my interpretation. Chris says it's not charitable. I agree with him, but I think that is what happened.
So I'm trying to remember, because the first time they tried to do Resident Evil multiplayer was Umbrella Corps, which was awful. And then they tried to do it again, right, with the Resident Evil 3 remake, where there was the asymmetric multiplayer.
Mercenaries, I think it was called, right?
Yeah, something like that. That wasn't so hot either, if I remember correctly. And now they're like, third time's a charm. Let's do it. Only maybe this time we'll put like some horrible iMovie looking comic book filters over, and this time it's going to work. So, I mean, I'm glad they're delaying it. I just don't. I think Chris is right in the fact that it's like, maybe they need a major overhaul, or I don't know. Do people want a PvP Resident Evil experience? I think
they're tethered to this. I think that they have to release it. I think they might have even preferred releasing it on its own and getting really bad scores than tying it to Resident Evil Village. I think that was a strategic mistake, and I don't think we're going to see them do that again. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Keep an eye out for that in 2022. If any of you care by that point, I doubt you will. Number 7, if you're a fan of Netflix's rendition of The Witcher, you'll be pleased to know that its second season will launch right before Christmas on December 17th later this year. Indeed, that would be almost 2 years exactly since the first season launched in the shadow of Christmas 2019. The series, starring Henry Cavill and inspired by Andrzej Sapkowski's Polish fantasy series, is even more aligned not with the books, but with CD Projekt's famous RPG series, which last saw a release with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in 2015. As we noted in last week's episode of Sacred Symbols, The Witcher 3 is getting a complete native PlayStation 5 release later this year with all DLC included. But we also now know, thanks to the developer, that the next-gen versions will receive some sort of content included that's inspired by and or based around events in the TV show. Details are otherwise totally vague. It could be weapons, content, we don't know. CD Projekt, under siege from the disastrous release of Cyberpunk 2077, still sees The Witcher as a major gaming series for them and even renegotiated their terms with the book's author as a result. A fourth Witcher game is in development, is likely next gen only, and otherwise remains a beautiful mystery. That term, of course, is for all the football fans out there. So I feel like with The Witcher, first of all, it's worth noting that CD Projekt, because they're Polish, were in a unique position with the original deal they signed with Andrzej Sapkowski, wherein he was getting totally fucked. And Polish law actually allows people to get out of those deals. And that's what happened. So he like made some sort of lump sum agreement with them like years ago, and it was horrible, like a horrible deal. And he obviously benefits a great deal from CD Projekt popularizing his stuff outside of Poland. But I'm still glad that that happened for him. Dustin, did you watch The Witcher? I actually am not attracted at all to this show. My girlfriend, Micah, is a huge fan of The Witcher 3. She loves everything about it. So more in her wheelhouse, but certainly not mine. I like the more grounded fantasy. In my opinion, that's just my thing.
Yeah, I started it and I thought it was mostly well done, but I don't know, it didn't grab me the same way that the game did, which even the game I've never finished. I go like once every 6 to 8 months and I'll play like 10 hours and then I drop it again. So maybe eventually I'll beat it. But what do you think about the fact that they're making this next gen version of Witcher 3 when Cyberpunk is still in the miserable state that it's still in? Like, I feel like that's bad optics. Like,
yeah, you have to assume
to do that.
I think Witcher has such a hardcore fan base that it's very similar to Bethesda and others. Like, people just forget or don't care or don't hold a similar standard. I do think it's a little tasteless, but I think that this was always part of the plan anyway. So I think they're just going forward with it.
Right.
Chris, where do you stand on this? Are you going to revisit Witcher when it comes to PS5? I think I might.
I think I might. Yeah, there's certain like quality of life improvements that I think the game desperately needs. That I think will be facilitated by like a jump to new hardware. I don't see why not. I'm kind of with Dustin though. I'm like, I keep picking it up and then putting it down for months, and then I come back and I'm like, well, I don't remember what in God's name I was doing. So off I go to the beginning again. And I think I might just like be like, all right, whatever. Like something happened. I'll read a synopsis and just keep going from where I'm at. I can't keep restarting this godforsaken game. But I think I might revisit it.
It's funny. I was doing that with Scarlet Nexus, which we were talking about earlier. They have like these synopses and stuff. And I was just like, fuck. I was just reading those, trying to get some grasp on the story I was otherwise basically ignoring at some point. All right. Number 8. As they do each and every month, Sony has revealed the best-selling games on PlayStation Network. This time, they released charts covering last month, June 2021. PlayStation 5's best-selling games on PSN were in order: Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Chivalry 2, Miles Morales, Guilty Gear Strive, Scarlet Nexus, Dark Alliance, NBA 2K21, FIFA 21, Mortal Kombat 11, MLB The Show 21, It Takes Two, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Returnal, Demon's Souls, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Rainbow Six Siege, Resident Evil Village, and Metro Exodus. Over on PlayStation 4, the best-selling games were in order: Cyberpunk 2077, Grand Theft Auto 5, NBA 2K21, Minecraft, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Chivalry 2, Rust, MLB The Show 21, God of War, Far Cry 5, Knockout City, Red Dead Redemption 2, Friday the 13th, Car X Drift Racing Online, Guilty Gear Strive, Mortal Kombat 11, FIFA 21, Dark Alliance, Need for Speed Heat, and UFC 4. Over on PSVR, the best-selling games were in order, the same as always: Beat Saber, Job Simulator, Superhot VR, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Creed Rise to Glory, Gorn, Swordsman VR, Gun Club VR, and Vacation Simulator. Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, Rocket League, Genshin Impact, and Apex Legends were the most popular free-to-play games across both PS4 and PS5. Nothing interesting to say there, with the exception of this, and I saw you nodding, Dustin, Cyberpunk 2077. This is what I was saying earlier. There is no penalty.
Doesn't matter.
There's no penalty for the release of the game.
On PlayStation 4.
Yep.
The platform that they specifically say not to play it on. That's where it's sold. That's insane.
Yeah, it's
holy.
It's unclear who is playing on PS5 and who's playing on PS4 because the native version has not been released yet. But it goes to show you that people are not giving a flying fuck. I mean, I actually refuse. I want to play, but I refuse at this point. I have to I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I can play it on PS5 comfortably, and I'm just refusing to do it. I just feel like someone has to take a stand. I'll get to it later. I'll buy it when it's cut in price. I'm not giving CD Projekt any money. This goes to really show you there is no penalty at all for releasing bad games. So stop complaining about it, because you're not going to do anything about it anyway. It's the same thing I said years ago when Skyrim was all fucked up on PlayStation 3. And I'm like, you guys will not remember when Bethesda releases their next game that they released Skyrim in such a horrible situation on PS3. And you didn't. Bunch of pansies. Number 9. This is a really weird one. I actually read about this before the show and putting the show together. I didn't know that this was going on like this. And I don't think a lot of the audience does either. So I want to bring this up. Number 9. There's a very weird situation revolving around Sega's Yakuza spin-off series Judgement going on. And it's not a good situation if you're looking forward to more games beyond the upcoming Lost Judgment in that spin-off. For the uninitiated, Judgement was a spin-off to Yakuza that launched on Western PS4s in 2019, and people really, really liked it. Its sequel, the aforementioned Lost Judgment, is due out on both PS4 and PS5 later this year, but that'll likely be the end of the road for the spin-off series after that. Why? Because the actor playing the game's protagonist, a man by the name of Takuya Kimura, is having contractual issues with Sega via his talent agency that represents him. While he's not remotely a household name outside of Japan, Kimura is reportedly one of Japan's most well-known people in entertainment. He's a singer, I think. And that comes at a cost. But it's not what you think, because the dispute doesn't seem to be about money, but about platforms the games are coming out on. In short, Kimura's talent agency doesn't want Judgment games on PC, and this is causing drama behind the scenes. Japanese website Nikon Taishu ran a story recently talking to a so-called insider, as relayed and translated by Kotaku. The original Judgment came to Stadia, and this in and of itself was a problem. The game was revealed for PC, but hasn't been confirmed. I'm sorry, I lost my place. The game was revealed for PC, but hasn't yet been released there, and Lost Judgment hasn't been revealed for PC at all, which Sega later confirmed. The agency, called Johnny's, largely deals with musical entertainers in Japan, and according to Kotaku, didn't even start a YouTube channel in 2018 and keeps all of its talent from even being on social media. And Johnny's happens to be to own Kimura's likeness, which for some reason it doesn't want on PC. This is apparently against the wishes of Takuya Kimura himself, who apparently loves the series and wants to keep going. But it appears the parties are at an impasse. Yakuza, launched in 2005 on PS2, has seen some 20 total releases between core game spin-offs and re-releases, and has long been headed by Sega-owned team Ryuga Kodoku Studio. Dustin, I don't know if you kept up with this. Yeah. I knew that there was a problem with this getting a third game. I was reading about that, but I didn't realize it was because this guy's talent agency owns his likeness, has a massive issue apparently with PC related stuff because of how it affects their music sales, and is taking this out on their deal with Sega. And what's even more interesting about it, I think, is that they have no dispute about releasing this game anywhere else. It reminds me, I read a recent story about Japanese culture and music and in idol culture, which apparently this guy is kind of fringing on, I think. And idols in Japan are like totally controlled by these companies. And I was reading a story about how like there was like these idols are supposed to be literally like single. They're not supposed to date. They're not supposed to have like relationships. And there was this woman in one of these girl bands who broke that rule and had to shave her head. And I was reading about that. I was like, what the fuck is going on over there? So it seems like this guy is in maybe some sort of similar weird situation. And it seems like he doesn't want to be in that situation. But this organization, Johnny's, is stopping him from using his own likeness.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Japan, there's a great documentary, I think it's on Netflix, called Tokyo Idols, that if you'd like to be thoroughly disturbed and fascinated at the same time, I recommend if you want to dive into idol culture. It's really messed up. But what's funny is I wonder if Sega is looking at this and kind of regretting their decision to include real actors in this game, because some people may remember the first game, one of the villains in the game, I think, I don't know what his role was, but he was a real actor in Japan, was caught with a drug charge. That's right. I believe it was cocaine.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they had to remove him from the game. They had to patch him out, and then they had to reprint the disc without him in it. And so, like, it's funny. And so he never appeared in the US version because this is when it was only out in Japan. But in Japan, there's like a very limited run, the first pressing of Judgement that has this guy in it that if you play it unpatched, you'll see, and he's in no other version. And now with this, they're having this other dispute. And dude, this is the other thing, is that the Japanese have such a weird thing about music. I didn't know that was the specific thing, but it made me think of with Dragon Quest, the composer of that game didn't want the actual recordings in the game because I believe that he was afraid that it would hurt CD and concert sales.
That's so wild.
Dragon Quest, which that guy's a piece of work also, because he's like to my understanding, he's like a Japanese war crime denier also.
Oh, nice.
So he's
Sweet.
a piece of work, but it's just so weird. That's like something that we would never even think of being a problem. Like people, like you'd never be like, I bought this game that has this song. Now I no longer need to buy the CD. Like that's just, which maybe it's a cultural thing, but
it's a very weird thing to think of Japan as, because like when I think of Japan, I kind of think of this like this place where there's a lot of, and maybe this is wrong, I'm not super familiar with Japanese culture or anything, but it strikes me as a place where there's a lot of tech. You know, like I think about that insane train that like that the magnet train and like all this like these weird robots, you know, and just the thought of people over there being like, nah, dude, we got to worry about the CD sales. Like, what? That's an entire dead medium here, like pretty much. Like maybe you'll buy a CD, but that's by no means like the main way that musicians make their money now. People make their money on stage tours and merchandise. So like it's just such a weird juxtaposition of this dude on like this magical bullet train that's like cycling through dimensions worrying about CD sales. Like it's just such a weird
Well, there's
two things to live together.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that he's fringing on idol culture, Colin, because to my understanding, like idol culture, it's beyond just the music. It's like people find their identity in following specific idols. And so it's like, you don't need the CD, but you buy the CD and you buy all the products to show your support for this idol, which is why I highly recommend that documentary. It's like very enlightening.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. That sounds great.
But I'm just curious how that relates to Steam. The thing that popped into my mind is like, are they afraid that people will mod the game and then use his likeness in a way that they don't approve of? It's like someone could just.
That's what I thought as well. That's what I immediately thought when I was reading that it had to do with PC. I'm like, they're afraid of people fucking around with the game. But I don't know if Kotaku is translating it right or whatever. I can't read the original, but it seems like that is not the case. It seems like they have something against PCs, like the internet, like anything related to it. Because like I said, they don't let any of their people on social media, and they didn't have a YouTube channel to even promote their own music until 2 years ago. So
wow.
This is a company that is completely, Japanese, I guess, is the way we want to put it. All right, there are a couple more things to get through. We'll go quick here. Number 10, there are a couple of interesting items to note if you're a sports game fan. For starters, FIFA 22, Electronic Arts' famous money-printing soccer franchise, it's getting its annualized release, as always, and it's coming natively to PlayStation 5 for the first time. So I know a lot of people are excited about that. The game is set to launch on both PS4 and PS5 on October 1st. So we have some sort of date for that now, which I know people are excited about. And then we have I'm sorry. I'm already lost here because I stopped reading what I was writing. And then there's NBA 2K22, the next edition of 2K's mega popular NBA franchise. That game will also come to PS4 and PS5 later this year, though it doesn't have a date. What it does have are cover athletes. Kevin Durant of the Brooklyn Nets, Luka Doncic, I think that's how you say it, of the Dallas Mavericks, and Candace Parker of the WNBA will all appear, while a special NBA 75th anniversary edition will include NBA legends Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Dirk Nowitzki. And finally, number 11 is a wrap-up. Website Gematsu reports Flying Game Away, the survival series where you play as a gliding squirrel, I think, comes to PS4 later this summer. Strategy game Phoenix Point Behemoth Edition comes to PS4 on October 1st and will be followed by at an undetermined time with a native PlayStation 5 launch. JRPG The Caligula Effect 2 comes to PS4 on October 19th. Casual game My Singing Monsters Playground comes to PS4 and PS5 this November. Action RPG Weird West comes to PS4 at some point this fall. Survival roguelike The Last Stand Aftermath comes to both PS4 and PS5 later this year. Story-driven game The Cruel King and the Great Hero comes to PS4 in early 2022. licensed action game Ruby, Arrowfell, story-based game Wayward Strand, and 3D platformer The Smurfs Mission Villeaf all come to PS4 and PS5 at some point in 2022. And monster catching game Nexomon is coming to PS4 and PS5 at an undetermined point in the future. And finally, website Push Square reports cute game Button City comes to PS5 on August 10th, while roguelike RPG Crown Trick comes to PS4 on August 31st. The same day, Shark playing Maneater receives a piece of standalone DLC on PS5 and PS4 called Site P. I can't wait for that. That I will play. Maneater is awesome. Absolutely love that game. Great game. Made in the state of Georgia. All right, boys, as always, we end every episode of Sacred Symbols with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia, where, again, you can get early ad-free access, submit your inquiries, etc., access to Sacred Symbols Plus. Let's start with Jared Allen, who may or may not be the Jared Allen that played for many years for the Minnesota Vikings. He says, hey, all, this is a question to Colin. Now, I want everyone to answer it, though. I've been following you since your days at IGN, where I loved your approach and perspective. So glad Last Stand Media is growing and gaining continued support and success. On Twitter, it's obvious that the industry journalists are not a fan of you. They always make comments that you have a toxic community that attacks anyone that says something negative about you. As a member of this community, it hurts me to hear that, since I know you preach to everyone on here to be kind, and in my experience, your supporters are nice, kind, level-headed, and diverse people. Why is there so much negativity towards you and this community when it's phenomenal? Just curious on your thoughts about this, since it has to be hard for you. Just know we love you and your team's content. Keep killing it. So, well, thank you for writing in, Jared, and for the kind words. I actually want to throw this to the guys before I even say anything about it. I'm curious, Dustin, what you make of the drama surrounding our ecosystem and what it means, because I'm a brash person. There's no doubt about it. I've always been brash. But I'm not really doing anything that, like, the I don't want to say I'm not doing anything. The response to much of what I say is not commensurate to the things that I say. And people completely take things out of context that I say often and act like I'm this really toxic and vile person, when you can scroll through 12 years of my tweets and find me never insulting a person, never. The things people say about me on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I'm a fascist. I'm an asshole. I'm a Nazi. I'm a fucking idiot, whatever the case might be. I mean, I'm a fucking idiot. But I don't put that on other people. I attack their work, and their work is bad. So I'm going to keep attacking it. But the thing that bothers me the most is just people mischaracterizing this community, which really is wonderful. And I'm curious what you think about all that.
To me, I think what is happening, because I've noticed this, where a lot of the accusations are, Colin highlights something and it's a dog whistle for the toxic community. And so I've seen some of the people that reply to these journalists defending you, and I've noticed a pattern in that the ones that are polite are the ones, I'll look at their profile and they follow me. Maybe they'll follow Chris, and they follow Colin, of course. There are also people that aren't so nice that almost never follow me or Chris. And sometimes they don't even follow Colin. Not to say that everyone in our community is a perfect angel, but there are people on Twitter that are alerted to different things that they find, people that like to attack games journalists, sometimes rightfully so, but often in toxic ways that are anonymous. Maybe they've got, we joke about the anime profile picture, but that is like a thing. And so I guess, to my view of the situation, there are people that just see the replies and assume that's our fan base, because they're jumping in to defend you, not in nice ways. So I get the mischaracterization sometimes, but it's not true in that we know our community and we know the people that are here. And so it is unfortunate to see that. I don't know, Colin, do you agree with my hypothesis here?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not particularly in agreement with you that there's even that many toxic elements in our community at all. Like I actually read these threads sometimes where people are piling on, and like sometimes there are hundreds of responses and like nothing. There's nothing, apart from maybe like people. There's nothing to a lot of these. Like I feel like that's why I don't really care so much about my own honor anymore. I realize that these people don't really have much control over me. I actually think that's part of what bothers them, is that they just can't. they have no tools at their disposal anymore. They thought getting rid of me, isolating me from media was going to hurt me. They thought isolating me from PR and developers and publishers were going to hurt me, but nothing hurts us and me, right? So I understand that frustration, but I'm kind of just bummed out that there's this, no matter what I say, I'm attacked. So I can say, and that's what someone I guess pointed out, was just like, I can make some sort of proclamation and it's going, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's always going to get the same people annoyed. But I notice that this, and we've talked about this, Chris, in the past, this circulates in this industry, the toxicity, I think, within the same groups. And I see like media and journalists and devs and some publishers and PR people or whatever, just bullying and fucking obliterating people left, right, and center. But when it's one of them that's under assault, and not even them being assaulted, but their work or their work ethic or the things they believe, they will. And so I don't care about my honor. I care about the audience that's been so good to us. We have a genuinely great, diverse, peaceful audience. And of course, like Dustin said, there's going to be fringe elements of any large group of people. But time and time again, we hear that this audience has been the most welcoming to all people that a lot of people have ever been in. And I'm just curious what you, as both an insider and an outsider that watched this happen, I'm curious if you have anything to say about it.
I don't know. I don't disagree with anything you've said or anything that Dustin said, but I would also just say, I guess for those of us who have been kind of in the public eye, sounds a little pretentious, but like for lack of a better term, in the public eye for a long time, we're kind of used to having these made up versions of ourselves in the mind of literally every single person who watches us, regardless of whether or not they like us. Because I get messages all the time, like where it's like just complete undeserved criticism and also just completely undeserved praise as well. And you have to realize that there are these like to the point where it's like a little like, all right, let's calm down a little bit. And the moment you realize that there is this fictionalized version of you that exists in literally every single person's head, that's the moment where you're like, I just have to be okay with people being wrong. Because if I spend my entire life trying to correct every single individual incorrect perception of me, I would never get a moment's rest, you know? So speaking just purely interpersonally, like this stuff doesn't really bother me. It's a little annoying to see the audience get dragged into stuff, but at the same time, it's like, I can't give it the energy that it would probably require to iron all this out like properly. It's just not worth engaging with the toxic shit, of which there's really only ever toxic shit coming from very specific groups.
Right. That's what I was saying before, is that I feel like it's when you see these likes and retweets and people being bullies, it's often just the same people propagating each other's stuff. It's not a real audience. It's not people that consume content. It's just obvious. I've been an observer of this for so long that it's just the circuitous nature of it is so obvious. And I think that sometimes I bring it on myself because I'm just not wise enough, but I also really resent this idea that I've changed or that I've become this horrible person or whatever. Anyone who has followed my content since my early 20s, when I first started being on podcast and video, know that I am way calmer and way more normal now than I was then. And you are a fucking liar, or lying to yourself, or simply not aware of the way I was at IGN. And even kind of funny if you think that the way you see and hear and read Colin today is the way it was 5 or 10 years ago. You're crazy. And that's the thing I think that bothers me the most. And it's something I wanted to say, was just this demeaning of you as if you've changed, you've become something bad, something sinister. No one can ever say what it is. No one can ever point to the thing that was said. No one can ever point to the feeling, right? It's always this anonymous thing. And that's why, Chris, I agree with you. It doesn't really hurt me so much as it frustrates me, because you are playing whack-a-mole in some way, but you also feel like since no one else is going to play whack-a-mole on your behalf, you're the only one that does it. And my whole stance on it, and I'll leave it here and we'll move on to the next question, because I just wanted to acknowledge it because a lot of people wrote in about this, so I didn't want to ignore it, is just that I'm not going to shut up. I won't. There's nothing that they're going to do to me that can make me shut up. I'm not doing or saying anything wrong. I encourage everyone to go look at my Twitter account. and see if it really does reflect the way it's described sometimes, or go and read about the way other people treat and talk to each other. I'm going to continue to attack ideas. I'm going to continue to critique things in the industry. And you're never going to see me call someone an asshole. You're never going to see me call someone this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't happen. It never has happened. It never will happen. And that's just the way it's got to be. If I'm Dustin, it seems like you want to say something. I just want to kick this to you to say also, I know it's known in the ether now, like you can speak about me and say things and tweet at me or tweet about me, and you're almost certainly never going to hear from me. But it's very similar, right, to what I say about Sonic on Twitter. I don't tweet bad about Sonic because I know that account might come and swing at me. And I'm not even being, it's funny. It's a funny example, but it's true. It's why I don't talk shit about Sonic on Twitter.
Yeah.
So you just have to know that if you're going to lie about me and debase me and defame me, and this guy that works at this PR person called our audience dogs. It's like, what? You're not going to talk like that about our people. And I'm happy to stand up for them. And I'm happy to set this precedent where it's like, you never know when I might swing back. And I have no problem punching in any direction. I don't believe in the whole punching up, punching down, punching left, punching right thing. I don't. I've said it before on the show. I don't go around talking shit to people, random people. So I don't have to deal with that problem. If you're talking shit about random people, you might have to deal with that problem. Dustin?
One thing I want to add, and I did not tweet about this because I wanted to say it on the show in a way that I could be a little more nuanced, is, and I'm willing to say who these people are. Nicholas Grayson posted a tweet when this was going down that said or two tweets that said, "So many people in this industry need to get popped in the mouth." And a follow-up tweet that said, "I would legitimately get in trouble if I saw some of you in person." And a editor and host of GameSpot, Michael Figham, said, "Talk shit, get hit. Easy as that. Who the fuck raised these motherfuckers?" And the other guy responded,
the person who raised this motherfucker is someone who told him never to put his hands on someone else. That's who fucking raised this motherfucker.
Here's something that should be abundantly clear. Saying that is unacceptable completely. Like, these people talk about inclusion and trying to make the world a better place and care about social justice. At the same time, if you find someone you don't agree with, you say something like you're going to pop them in the mouth. How is that okay?
Yeah, these are
How is this
guys.
not allowed even on Twitter? And here's the thing. I named these people because I want to make it clear, like, first of all, it's ridiculous that they can say these things and they're like, this one dude was a host on the E3 show and he's saying shit like this online. Imagine if on Sacred Symbols, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pop this guy for talking shit on Colin. Dude, like we would be gone that
would be the
like
end.
that.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. We cannot allow it. We cannot allow it.
Well, this is what I've said many times is that, it was very unpopular when that neo-Nazi got punched in the face in Washington some years ago. I was going to say Phil Spencer. That's not his name. Richard Spencer. Phil Spencer, the neo-Nazi, got punched in the face. And I was like, well, this is the very worst of America, this guy. But you can't punch people in the street. You just can't. And this kind of cadence of violence and just saying anything. I think wasn't it Mike Tyson that recently said, like, social media has given too many people, like he said something, Michael Tyson is where it was like violent, but it was like, so too many people have just gotten used to this, there being no repercussions for the way they speak to people, the way they speak about people. It's like you have no inner monologue anymore at all. But I am very proud of our audience. I'm very proud of the people we work with. And I'm very proud that we take diverse and sometimes divergent stances on issues. It creates a more robust and interesting community, which we have. The community is great. And I'm always happy to come to your defense. I mean, it's just always going to be the way I am. And they're never going to shut me up. So thank you for writing him. Chris, I'm ready to infuriate you now with Nicholas Schaeffler's question. He says, "Hey, gents, has a higher frame rate ever hurt a game experience for you? I recently played Ghost of Tsushima on my PS5 for the first time and felt that 60 frames made the game less cinematic at times. Like the grass and trees blowing in the wind look too good. Makes me think that lower frame rates can still be used to create certain experiences. I can think about the Order 1886 24 frames controversy. Thoughts?" That was I totally forgot about that. Where they were like, "This is cinematic. We're going to make our game 24 frames." Like,
yeah.
Oh God. But I feel like you might have something to say about this.
Yeah, I can't even fathom I can't even fathom how more frames would hurt the experience of a game. I've never seen that happen. I like I said, like even 30 frames for Ratchet was disgusting to look at. Like to me, like I can't go back. I've never once played a game that's running at like 15 frames a second. I thought like, oh, well, it kind of works. You know, it kind of works for the aesthetic. You know, it doesn't. I don't know. This does not translate to me at all. This is actual alien speak. Because it seems just impossible that this could be a perception.
I wondered this too, Chris. Like, Dustin, I don't know if you see it any differently, but I have wondered this, where we see, I mean, film and TV is at 24 frames, and that motion looks very natural to us. It's what the eye discerns, I think, and it's just so interesting that games are at a different, are held to a different level, and yet I understand it. As I've said ad nauseum on the show, I am a frame rate believer now. But I have wondered what Nicholas is saying here. Would you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I feel bad because I mean I don't feel bad. I laughed a little bit when he said that the trees look and the wind look too good. Like that's a bad thing. But I kind of get it in that maybe you are looking for something that's kind of more like a movie, and so there is a disconnect there, maybe. But like for me, it's like, I want my game to be a game, and to play as good as possible. So I can understand the perspective, but also not, just because it's like it's a game, it's not a movie. It's gonna look different. But
the whole reason why movies are fine in that frame rate is because there's no input to take into account. Like a movie can't feel unresponsive,
right?
You know. Like, and in a medium that's entirely centered around interaction and players, you know, communicating with the medium via inputs, like frames, like the more frames, the better. That's just how, like, I can't perceive it any other way than that. You know,
we should make the first movie that doesn't respond well. Like there's just like 3 or 4 extra seconds between every line spoken.
Yeah.
It's like one of those bad YouTube uploads.
Yeah.
Where like it separates the audio. All right. Oh, this next one I want to ask you guys about. I have something to say about this too. Kurt Bettenhausen wrote into us and said, "Hey, CDC, Colin often brings up inflation as the evidence that games are cheaper today than they were in the 80s. While I agree that inflation plays a part, I'm not sure that this is the case. Wouldn't you also want to consider the increase in consumers, reduced costs in manufacturing and distribution of the physical media, availability of game creation tools, larger labor supply, and overall larger competition in the market? These factors, it seems, would keep the price down. What are your all's thoughts? Thanks to keep up the great work." So this is true, and I don't want to get too deep into economics, although I love economics, but I'm a little confused by this point of view, only because this would only matter if you were comparing Airwolf on the NES in 1990 at $60 and Airwolf on the NES in 2021 for $60. You're not getting the same games as you said. You're getting way better games. I mean, I love a lot of old games. Everyone knows that the NES is my favorite console ever, but you're getting games that are way more sophisticated, way more complicated, way more beautiful, that require... I've said this before. Final Fantasy IV was made by like 8 people. I mean, can you imagine that? That's nuts. And they made it in like a year. We're talking, so it's like we are just talking about, we're talking about a lot of different things. I don't think that the things that are different are suggestive that I'm wrong. I actually think the things that are different suggest that I'm completely right. Chris, do you think it's a relevant conversation to have about, I was a little more surprised he didn't get into the common theme about game pricing, which is cheaper than ever. It just is, which is that we have to take into account how much money people have adjusted compared to those situations. I'm wondering if this resonates with you at all, because I just feel like saying to people, games are cheaper than ever. It's true. And it's good. It's more accessible than ever. Why is that so bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely true in a lot of cases. There are cases though where, you know, you pay $60 for what is essentially like a quarter of the experience, and then they have like, you know, there's battle passes and stuff like that that ultimately really do kind of fill out the rest of the game that you would have gotten had such a system not existed. So you could argue that like the base, like for a lot of popular games, the price of those games is actually probably closer to like probably closer to like $90 if you want to get like the whole, like actually everything that the game actually has in store. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily compelled by this, mainly because I'm just, I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable on economics or like any of this type of stuff.
Hogwash.
Any of this hogwash. But there are so many variables to take into account when analyzing a situation like this that I almost feel like I have to defer to just experts on it, because I just feel like I don't know how to make heads or tails or out of really any of this, because there's so many different variables, even just like house to house in a neighborhood,
Sure.
But
well, this is I think people are thinking I'm saying it from like an ivory tower, but I'm not. I'm saying it about how exciting it is, because I remember, Dustin, and I've told these stories before, but I remember buying Final Fantasy 3/6. We knew it as 3 in 1994 and paying $80 for it. $80. That's $150 today. How can someone say to me that games aren't cheaper than ever and that it's actually really impressive? Because people are like, well, the scale is greater. And I'm like, yeah, the scale is greater. So is the cost of making the games. The companies are bigger. The teams are bigger. Everything is bigger. The costs are bigger. Everyone acts like it's on this linear path, but it's not. It's almost frustrating to me how people don't realize how good we have it in this regard. I'm sorry. I know it's by the way, I have to say this before everyone yells. I know it's different in your other countries. I know, I get it. It's just that, and I've explained the tax situations in the United States and all of that. It's not as bad as it seems. Also, in the United States, we do we do pay more for other products as well. So it just vacillates up and down. But I'm just curious, Dustin, does my argument resonate that games are cheaper than ever and that this is a positive that we should be embracing? Because I even said on Twitter, everyone freaked out. I was like, actually, inflation is eating up that $10 increase so much that the price of the new game should actually be $80 just to keep up with inflation. It was an academic point. It's not saying I want that to happen. People are so sensitive to this.
To be 100% clear with the audience, I'm like Chris. I don't know the economics, but I think Trevor may have some point, because to me, I could see like we got to figure out what the scale of certain things are. Like, okay, what is the average price of a game? How much has that increased in that time? But also, how much bigger is the market? I agree that they're not linear, but I mean, games now, they've eclipsed every other medium. It is the most popular medium in the world. So surely there is something to be said about scale. But again, I don't know the numbers on that, but I can see that being definitely a factor, maybe more than you would account for.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is a factor. Scale, economies of scale bring costs down. I mean, that is economic law, but it's the linear. That's why I used Airwolf as the random example, or some NES game. You have to be talking about the same items to have that same linear path. Because again, Final Fantasy IV's budget was probably no more than a couple of $1 million, and Final Fantasy 15's budget was over $100 million. So the difference is not just made up for. I really feel like what we really need, the data, and to Kurt's point, and you said this, Chris, as well, is, you all said it really was, or at least alluded to it. We need more holistic views of the numbers. Like, the way we would know this is if we knew the cumulative budget of all games made in 1990, and then we knew the cumulative budget of all games made 2020, and then we compared how much money the industry made then and how much the industry made now, and then we compared like how big the businesses were and who they employed and everything. It's almost unknowable. So I'm confident in my proclamation, because it's my experience. It's been playing games for over 30 years. Is we used to pay a lot more for games than we do now. It is, period.
I guess something that would be interesting, someone who can really dive in the data and look, like I just basic Google search and saw copies of Final Fantasy VI sold on Super Nintendo. It instantly pops up, and I don't know if this number's right, but 3.48 million copies. So
that's not very much. I mean, we just talked about, that's one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, probably in the top 10. And it sold fewer copies lifetime than Resident Evil Village sold in a month.
So wouldn't that work in the favor of our write-in then?
Only if it's linear. Only if Final Fantasy IV or Final Fantasy VI and Resident Evil Village were made by the same teams under the same costs, under the same situations, but they're not. Resident Evil Village is probably $100 million game. That's the point.
Right. But at the same time, like, it's like, well, let's see. So 3.48 million, and then we're looking at Final Fantasy or Resident Evil, and we're seeing sales of upwards of 3 times the amount in just a few months.
I mean,
we're
this
not
is
even
the-
looking at lifetime.
Right. This is the data we don't have, though. Game sales fall off. We don't really know how much the game cost. We also don't know like what the licensing fees were back then. I don't know that the licensing fees were as actually fortuitous 70-30 as they were then. Like Nintendo was completely alienative of all of their partners famously in the Nintendo era. They wouldn't let companies publish too many games, as people famously know,
Right.
which was
Mhm.
smart. And they should take a fucking hint. Not so much Nintendo, but others.
Yeah.
All right. Trevor Cannon wrote into us and said, "Hey, dudes, Colin, I met you at the very first PSX in Las Vegas, and we had a great chat about how we both thought the Order 1886 wasn't looking too good after playing the demo. I remember that demo. That was like the airship demo. During that trip, I also ran into, at the time, Sony employee Adam Boyes. During that interaction, he, off the cuff, told me that he and a few other employees pitched the PSX event to Sony originally, and that Sony wasn't super on board with it at the time, but they ultimately decided to go through with it. I bring this story up only to reiterate that without people like Adam, Shu, Gio, etc., Sony is really missing out on something that really brought the community together. I understand Sony looks at this event as a revenue loss, but that really should look at as they shouldn't look at it as a loss leader. I'm sorry, but they really should look at it as a loss leader. You will make more fans in the end. Sorry for the long rant, but my question, do you think there will ever be another PSX? So Dustin mentioned earlier, and we mentioned on the show weeks ago, that PlayStation Experience has been trademarked again. We don't really know what it's in regard to because it can mean many different things. But I mean, I can tell you, because I don't give a flying fuck. I mean, that is true. What Adam told you is true. There was a group of people that did pitch PlayStation Experience. The PR people and the marketing people that ruin everything there are the like and stand in the way of all the fun are the ones that said no, and then they got it through anyway, and they did lose a lot of money on it. And so yeah, that's all true. But Dustin, I wondered, do you think we'll see PSX again? I mean, you had alluded to it earlier.
My gut says no, and I feel bad saying that because I want it so badly. But you know, it sucks to hear that they lost a lot of money on it. I'm curious to know like how much of a loss it would be, because I think I said on this show, maybe it was on Maddie's show, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but that the benefit of PSX, you can't get a number, right? There's no dollar amount. It's goodwill and word of mouth that event like that provides. And so, you know, without some people at the top really advocating for it, I can see Sony being like, yeah, but why? Like, what's the actual benefit? And you can't really lay that out on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, where do you stand on this? I went to every PSX, and they're great shows. They're really unique and interesting. The first one, I think, is one of the most memorable, if not the most memorable show I've ever been to. It was so intimate, and it was awesome. It was so fun. And I think they have something fun here, and it's part of what made PlayStation fun during the PS4 era and the late Vita era was just this evangelism that is gone, and it gone with it. Gio's gone. Adam has been gone for a while. Shuhei has been, like I said, obviously benched. So what do you think the future is of this brand? And I don't mean PlayStation, I mean PlayStation Experience. Do you think the trademark is elusive to, or alluding rather to, an event, or could it be like an app or something? Because that's kind of where I'm a little skeptical on the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see an event again. I do think you might see like a rebranding of an app, or it might even just be just to renew the trademark, so they just have it in case they, decide to do something with it in the future. They're just not that Sony anymore.
Yeah,
which is probably like not fun to hear, but
yeah, it sucks.
I mean it's not wrong.
What matters most are the games and the experience.
Yeah,
the literal. Excuse me, I'm burping. The literal PlayStation experience is not the experience I'm talking about, but just the experience of being a fan and a gamer and a customer of them. But PlayStation felt really fun from the Vita era, the beginning of the Vita era, into the 2013 New York City PS4 reveal, which was awesome, into E3 that year, which was even better, into PSX later that year, into all of the rest for next year. It was awesome. And I hope it does come back, but I agree with you guys. I don't think it will. Caesar Arroyo wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, hope you're all doing well. I was wondering if you guys have used the Accolades feature on PlayStation 5. Have any of you given or received any? A while back, I was in a party for Destruction All-Stars to obtain these seemingly impossible trophies due to the horrible multiplayer servers. While we were mopping up these trophies for everyone, we started handing out these accolades to each other as a sort of joke due to the circumstances of the game. As funny as it was, it actually felt kind of nice receiving something that meant I actually helped someone with the arduous task. Since then, I've almost completely forgotten about them until now. Would love to hear your thoughts on this feature and if you think it's here to stay. Love the show. So it's so funny he brought this up. This is why I wanted to talk about this, because I forget that this exists too. And when you go into your player profile on PS5, you see your accolades. And I don't have any. I never got any. But I like the idea of there being a meta trophy system that's about people being helpful and nice and kind and all of that, but it's just not what drives people into these situations. And so it seems a lot like Nier and other things that just came and went, where this is an idea that will eventually be stripped out. I actually have never heard one person mention it. It's never been written into on this show. Caesar, we have like a lot of listeners, and you're the first person I remember even writing in about this. Chris, have you ever earned any accolades? Do you care?
No, I don't. Well, first of all, I forgot that this was even a thing, like entirely, and I'm still not even really convinced it is. To be honest with you,
it is. It's there, but I would never have, because it's only for multiplayer. It's only for multiplayer, so I would never see it.
Oh yeah, maybe if I check mine, I have some, but I can't say that I've noticed but I have a lot. Like, you know, I have my notifications turned off, so like. Even if I don't know if they pop up like trophies,
I don't either.
Or
I don't even have
messages or. Yeah, I have no idea how they interface with the player, like when they pop. So like maybe I have some and I just don't notice. I'll check after this. I'll let you know next episode.
Sure.
When I have accolades, but yeah, I can't say that this is all that important to me.
Dustin, I want to reiterate. I think this is a really nice idea. I just don't feel like. They're going for a reputation system, and that's really cool, but I just don't, it can be too easily manipulated. Like he's saying, they basically manipulated it themselves. I mean, but to his other point, it actually is kind of the way it's supposed to be used. They're farming trophies and they're telling each other that they helped each other. So I like this reputation system, but it just seems like something that is not going to stick around. Very similar to communities and other things that, you know, events. Remember that?
Right. You know, I'm willing to be very honest with the audience right now, and even if it might make me look bad, I know a lot about PS5. You know, I learned the other day about how to enable Dolby Atmos on the Blu-ray player. So I've gone deep. I saw this question, I read it, and I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And I had no idea this was even a thing. I've never heard of this until this very day. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a fake fan. I don't.
No. I don't think it's anything
like
that. It's not something they're really promoting, and it's like kind of in the bronze. It's not even. It's like this person was helpful. This person was kind. This person,
right?
You know, like, and so it's. I don't know. I would. So people should write in, because maybe there is like a subgroup of where this is currency, just like trophies. So
right.
Write in and let us know. But I feel like this will be like Nier on Vita, and like events and like community and all the other shit that they tried, and it's nice. But you saw with the events and community that no one cared about that, so they're certainly not going to care about this. I would assume.
Certainly not.
This final one made me laugh out loud, so I had to include it as the stinger to our show. This is fucking hysterical. Michael Brodzik wrote in and said, "What's up, CDC? I recently was meandering through PlayStation profiles at the Dark Souls trophy list. I noticed that there is a trophy in Dark Souls 2 called This is Dark Souls, which pops when one dies for the first time. According to PSN profiles, 96.46% of players have popped this trophy. My question is, do you have a big swinging dick if you have all the trophies in the game and miss the platinum because you literally never died and would rather not have the platinum than die? This made me laugh so hard. In other words, the reverse trophy." Dustin, wouldn't it be funny as, first of all, I always love when like a trophy, like you have to get that trophy if you play the game, but nearly 1 in 20 people never even played the game. I mean, that's what that trophy tells you, which is so wild. They put the game in and then never played it. And but what about this anti-trophy? I mean, this is hysterical. I want to know if anyone has ever done this where because the most hardcore thing you can do in Dark Souls 2 is not get the platinum trophy. It's to get every trophy except that one bronze trophy.
Right. Well, I know that people do, like, speedrunners will do speedruns of like platinums for Dark Souls games. Like they'll make a new account and do a speed run to get the platinum. So part of me wonders if someone's already done this before, just for like the clicks on YouTube. I mean, if I could do it, I would definitely do it. I'm nowhere near that skill in these games.
I just thought, Chris, it reminded me of you, especially because I was like, this seems like something Chris would do. Not necessarily in Dark Souls, but like he doesn't care so much that because if I saw that on a profile and I knew I was like, all you need to do is put the game in and die and you will get the platinum trophy. That's all you need. And you just saying no, you know, and that would literally, I'd take that to my grave probably. That would infuriate me so much.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
I love the premise of this. That would be amazing to just see somebody with that all of those trophies except that one.
Like you just can't get the platinum.
Because that's insane. That is a big swing.
It's so funny.
That is no way around it.
Oh my god, I agree. It's hysterical. I laughed out loud when I was going through the questions. I was like, I have to end with that because I've never even thought about that. It's brilliant. Thank you, Michael. We'll call that the Brodzik, that particular trophy style. But thank you all for writing in, and of course, thank you all for your love, kindness, and support of our show as you are here each and every week with us, whether on Patreon, YouTube, free feeds on podcast services. I always forget to say this. I think a lot of people are confused, even though it is in your welcome letter when you sign up on Patreon. We have an RSS feed. Patreon's app is very frustrating for some people. You could get an RSS link that's personalized to you, put it in Apple Podcasts or whatever, and boom, you get all the podcasts like that. You don't even have to interface with Patreon. So let's get the hell out of here. Dustin, you have any closing comments?
No, I'm pulling a Chris. I am starving right now because it is 7 p.m.
Yeah, so we're recording way later than we usually do. Thank you guys for allowing that. It was a bit of a chaotic day for me here. Chris, dare I ask?
I'm well fed.
Everything's upside down right now. I don't know what to make of that.
It's all wrong.
Everything's all wrong. Well, boys, thank you for your time, and thank you all out there again for your love, kindness, and support. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols, Sacred Symbols Plus, Knockback, Defining Duke, etc. Talk to you next time. Goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.